welcome to the Good for Business podcast. This is your guest host, Annabelle Davies, and I am interviewing the Colin Krieger today. So, side note, if you have him on Facebook, he has a post on there. If you have any secrets you want to know about him, go and write it, and I'll see if it'll ping me, and I'll ask him on the podcast. Welcome, Colin.
I'm a little scared because you have 37 notes full of pages full of notes there.
I do like notes. They're just my brainstorming questions because there's so much that I want to know about you. But first, for those of you who haven't met him in person, let me just tell you a little bit about him first. Let me tell you about this guy. He is one of the most genuine, generous, and joyful people consistently across the board that you will ever meet. I think every single time I've seen him, he's just been fully present, fully there. He's always bringing the laughter. And I really enjoy having conversations with this guy. And he's also one of those people who wants more for you than from you. It's just amazing when you interact with this guy. So, Colin, I want to hear first from you, what got you started? Let's start with the podcast, the basic. What inspired you to start the Good for Business podcast in the first place?
All right. Well, I guess you got to go back to... I worked owned part of the newspaper here, the Columbus Packet newspaper, from May of 2010 to August of 2014. I like to say I saw the worst of what Columbus and the area had to offer. Saw a lot of shootings, murders, got shot at, saw people die. It was pretty traumatic there. But while I was there, I realized that a lot of the advertisers didn't want to be in the paper next to a big bloody head, Mm-hmm. And so we started what we called the B section, which was just happy, good news. And we ended up getting more advertising, more comments, more readership from the good news than the bad, which is pretty counterintuitive in the media industry of if it bleeds, it leads. And so even though the cover of the paper still had that stuff on there, and the whole front section had mugshots and all this other stuff, the back section was all happy news. And when I got out of it, my wife and I had just moved downtown, and we had made a commitment the year before, we're going to stay here and we're going to make the place better while we're here, actively, don't wait to get invited to the parties, just kick down the doors, start your own stuff, and help where we can. And so when I got into real estate right away, I kind of did the normal real estate thing for 6 months, put my head down and work, and was putting normal stuff on Facebook, and I was every other realtor on Facebook, here's a few tips to do your house, here's my listing, here's my listing, here's my listing. And probably about 3 or 4 months into that, and I had a lot of listings, I came across Gary Vaynerchuk, who's kind of a personal growth hype businessman or whatever. And the first big breakthrough I had with him, just watching him, was your work-life balance is your business. Because I was working hard, but I needed to. Wife and 3 young kids, and just drastically changed careers a couple times. And so I saw his stuff, and it was really some tangible stuff about social media and that sort of stuff. And then, which was his basic premise was jab, 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 right hook, which was provide value, do coverage of others, which I'd already done. And this guy was exact same age as me. He's 3 days older than me. And so I went to a conference after watching about a month of his stuff, connected with him on Twitter, sent him an email, and I went to the conference, and it was a real software-assisted sales conference. I know this is a long answer. And software-assisted sales conference, and I bought the package where you got to meet him and talk to him ahead of time on Twitter. Then I got there, and it was just he and I in a room. And his book was coming out that day. His assistant had left one of his phones downstairs. So we had 30 or 40 minutes, which would cost you $100,000 now to get consulting with him. And we're the same age, and we talked about baseball cards and chips and high school and, almost failing out of school, all this other stuff, and growing up kind of broke. And, at the end of it, he, looked at my Facebook for 20 minutes, and he's like, man, if you just less of this, more of this. And if you're not watching the video, less selfies, more taking pictures of other people. And he's like, you're already going to all these events. You have all the newspaper connections. And that was where it clicked, where he said, he called it the social mayor campaign. That actually came out of our conversation. And then he made one of, he's got 3 or 4 videos that came from stuff over the years that he and I talked about because we connected about being the same age. And we still get to chat every once in a while, which is cool because he's super famous and my kids think it's cool.
Yeah.
But he's the same age as me. So he said, just do this. And so for years, countless years, really until I was on WCBI for 8 or 9 years without it, I wasn't taking selfies. It's just pictures of other people doing good stuff. And I was already addicted to it, and it felt good. And so that's where after the real estate commission in 2018 or 19 switched the laws on real estate, where like if anything had to do with real estate, it had to say it was real estate. So what I did was like, well, I'm going to segment. This is Colin Krieger. This is real estate. And then I created the Good for Business Facebook page. And then my brother was helping me with it, my brother Eric. And 2 years later, I just added his name to it. And then he got kind of inspired from that and started covering more restaurant stuff, more things like that. And so we're getting like 1 million hits a month on our Facebook page, which is a lot.
That's amazing.
Just from, and not reviews, just this business is awesome, good for them for trying, that sort of thing.
Yeah.
And he's huge, and especially in like the inner city restaurant community, he goes to stuff and people love him. And then it hadn't even been a year. A year ago, I saw the Dispatch was starting a podcast, and I came and asked Josh Gillis, who I somewhat knew around town, and I was like, how much is it to do a podcast? Because countless people have microphones and cameras laid around their office, and I use my Dorothea Brand quote, which is, don't let perfect be the enemy of the good, which is too many people have all this stuff, and it's not quite right, so they didn't do it. And like Josh gave a great price here at Catfish Alley Studios, and I'm like, let's do it. Knowing that, in my mind, AI was coming up, and that needed to have some video presence and online presence of not only myself, but local businesses and business owners and that sort of thing. And the original premise was, I just want to hear your work story, like what was your first job, that sort of thing. And quickly, when my first guest canceled and then Russell Poole came in here, who's a personal growth buddy, then it just turned into just tell me your life story, and then it just turned into we're just talking. So
I really appreciate how there's so much packed into that answer, but I will say what I'm seeing here is like you noticed I feel like you're a very present and self-aware person just from talking to you, and you're so intentional with your actions and what you're doing, and you're one of those people who, because you don't see this often, especially in what I consider highly successful people. Or excuse me, you do see this in highly successful people, is that they're willing to let go of the things that aren't working to bring in the great. Like let go of the good to bring in the great, right? Yeah. And so I love that you recognize, you're like, wow, people are really loving the good news. And I will tell you, even my son, my teenager, the impact that has, hearing good news versus what is often pushed on media, which is the bloody, gory stuff.
People are addicted to it. They really are. And I've made the argument to the Dispatch several times and other places. Like if y'all just put pictures, a whole section of baseball teams and kids hitting home runs and stuff, like you'd sell more papers because if your kid's in the paper, you got to buy it. Yeah, that was our argument with the B section. Is every time we put somebody's photo in there, they bought the paper. So our circulation went up, and we could tell that, like, when Columbus High did good in the playoffs and we put pictures of 6 kids playing, like, in East Columbus, we'd sell more papers. And if it was in West Lowndes, and we started realizing, like, that was a correlation where you got taught, like, as a salesperson that, but it's still, like, people would thank you. And I'm like, this is awesome. And now, like, people thank me, like, thanks for – I get credit for too much a lot of times where I'll just share an event or help promote an event, and they're like, thanks so much for doing that. I'm like, I didn't – serve catfish. I just said it was going on, but it's still, like I said, and then it also, the part of your amygdala, the reticular activator, we talk about this a lot, and I feel like I talk about it all the time, but I'm always talking to different people. If you're shopping for a Honda Accord and you see Honda Accords everywhere, that's your reticular activator. And so when you just constantly looking for positive news, great example today, I left WCBI where I was doing my events thing and saw 2 guys, Steve Greeno, who's one of the best volunteers in the world, who just got recognized a couple times this year, is hanging up a banner outside the county courthouse. And I was like, oh, and I stopped by, and WCBI was there. But I saw 2 people that I knew, Fred Kinder and him, putting up a banner, which must have been something good. And it was for the Exchange Club, like, anti-violence campaign or something, whatever they're doing. But, like, I look for that. And you would be driving by, and you may see the construction and be like, oh, construction sucks, or this tree's dying, or whatever. But you're training yourself every day the more you look for it to find it. Because people ask me, like, how do you see all this good stuff? I'm like, and
you trained your brain, your RTA to look
and my
for
social media feeds are just, dork-filled. They're not cat videos, but they're just like the guys who like give homeless people money and those sort of things where you get that, I say that cheap adrenaline, but it's better than watching like a bully video or somebody getting in fights.
So would you say that that kind of impact, because I would say maybe hopefully you agree with me that listening to this podcast, like if you're new here, listeners, and this is your first one, go listen to the other podcasts. You're going to be so inspired by the people he gets in here and the conversations that are had. But would you say that's a direct, like, intentional impact you wanted this podcast to have on other people, was to help them retrain their RT?
I think part of it was just, I think there's so many amazing people just in the world, and not just here. And, originally my thought was for giving some examples for business and stuff, but like, I'm addicted to the conversations I'm having at lunch, or, hearing somebody's story or what they're doing this year or what they're focused on. And, that, I like having those conversations. I'm glad there's some record of it. I'd like to be doing a better job of promoting it or whatever, because everybody compares like their worst moment to the other one's perfect, shiny moment on Instagram. I had some good phrase when I saw yesterday at Up Down Cafe, the official bacon seller of Colin Krieger. But I ran into Annabelle at Up Down and was talking about that we look at Instagram and see this best moment, Mm-hmm. And so even I do it too, where I'm like, oh, the podcast is getting, 500 views or something. Well, it's Columbus, Mississippi. Like, that's a lot. Like, the fact that our Good for Business thing probably outperforms a lot of the, in my mind, outperforms like a lot of the local media, but it's only good news. And half of it, some of the stuff's coming from there. That's where, like, I hope the podcast, because I know that, like, the people who are out there who are kind of loud in personal growth, or even not with big social media followings, like the most listened to podcast, my brother's is way up there, and it was mainly because the clip of it was so good, which was, there was a little clip, and we're trying to do better with them, where I say, like, please, Eric, please go review the donut shop in West Point. And he's like, okay, and he's joking. Michael Talley, who's a good buddy of mine who does fences, just kept saying over and over again the day I asked him day before, because I knew, like, he wasn't going to want to do it unless I tricked him. He came in here. It's one of the most listened to all the way through podcasts that I've had. And he's just Mike the fence guy. And he really didn't have much of a social media stuff, but it was two friends talking. And then probably the least surprising that I got listened to, but one of the best, was Mr. John from United Deli, where I not only didn't think he would do it, I thought he'd be quiet, and I didn't know he'd listened to all 30 episodes before. He was so excited to come on. And I think I only asked him 7 questions. Because every time I asked him a question, much like I'm doing now, I was like, so then you moved to Seattle, and he just talked, and I was just mesmerized. I'm like, this guy's doing it. So, like, not only learning more about him, but hopefully that there's something that their kids can see and family can see, and plus, with the exception of 1 or 2, they're evergreen. Like, it's good when content is good forever. Mm-hmm. That somebody can look back on it in 6 months and be like, oh, that's, the guy from Glow or the guy from this or whatever. So,
and I would say, especially as someone who's fairly new to this community, it's so interesting, and it helps you feel more connected to the community when you hear the stories behind the businesses. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And so you really, I tell people this all the time about Colin, that he is such a people connector. Like, he's just incredible. Everybody knows him. Everybody has good things to say about him. And he always has somebody else's name on his lips to like just encourage them, share about their business, or really connect people who need to be connected. And I think you're the one who really inspired me to get even more curious about the businesses and the people behind them in this community. So thank you for that.
Thank you. I'm getting better at taking compliments and not being too self-deprecating in that. But I think a good example yesterday is I hadn't introduced me yet, but I made a joke about Luke Lawson, who's a local preacher who's married to Christine Lawson, who's like a business coaching friend of mine. And I'm ran into you accidentally at Up Down Cafe, the official bacon provider of Colin Krieger and the Good for Business podcast. And I had like stopped thinking about Luke, and I was talking. I was like, who you need to talk to is Christine Lawson, blah, 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 blah. And then like Luke's like, really? And I'm like, I seriously had disconnected him that her husband was sitting behind you, but I was just like, oh, y'all need to meet. And then when I texted her about coming on, I asked her to be on the podcast, but she was tied up today, and on my episode, and she was like, oh, I've been wanting to meet. She wanted me to connect you and her.
Yes.
For the same reason, because there are little pockets, and it's not just, I talk about personal growth a lot, but there's a few people like that. But like, I've had some of the most interesting people I meet are some of the quietest people I meet, but I've mentioned stuff on podcasts, and they're like, I am so into Jim Rohn. And in my mind, they're just this engineering kind of square dude, Yeah. And so that's what, it's always fascinating to me. Like, I go into restaurants and don't know, people think I know everybody. And I'm like, I don't know. I love it when I go to Zachary's and nobody's there that I know. And I'm like, see, all this just world of opportunity that we live in, plus all the interesting stories. Like I was trying to come up with a brand slogan 2 years ago, and my friend Nathan Wilson from Muddy Water Graphic Design, who's my main dude, and we're marketing nerds together. We came up, my idea was everybody deserves attention, which is the same thing. Like there's very few people, it's less than 10% of people who aren't a fascinating interview if you can get them to open up. I've only had one that was just kind of tough to get through, but the rest of every other 50 I've done on this have just been, once I get them to open up a little, it's just been fascinating, because everybody's got a pretty good story and something that's relatable to everyone else, The hard part is when you're doing interviewing or talking to anybody, and I know you know about this, where you say, oh, a good example, Keaton Blocker, good buddy of mine, got terminal cancer, is you say that, and he goes, hey, Keaton's got terminal cancer. And they're like, oh, my mom had this. And you're like, okay. Like you try to empathize, which is a human trait, but it doesn't help. You know what I mean? Because nothing's the same. My wife had breast cancer. Oh, my wife had breast cancer. Well, thanks. Like you want the sympathy, but not the empathy at the time, when you're giving a conversation. So.
Yeah, that can be hard. Speaking of Keaton Blocker, if you're out and about, where is the...
It is tonight. I don't know if we'll get this on the air in time, but it's from 5 to 9 tonight at Pepper's Deli in Columbus.
Okay. Because, they've got his bucket list. He's doing all the things that he can with his family, and so we're doing a fundraiser to support them. So even if this episode doesn't get out in time, we love you, Blockers.
Well, I'll put the QR code right there, and you can still scan it and give them some money. So.
Perfect. Thank you.
Win-win.
Okay. Well, speaking of stories, this made me think the Keaton's fundraisers on Facebook, and that brought me to the post. A friend of yours mentioned a question that they wanted to hear a story of yours. So I want to hear this. So tell me about the time you laid sod in your yard.
It's not that emotional. So that's Mike, who used to be my neighbor, now lives around the corner. He's Mike the grass guy. He cuts grass.
Okay.
He's actually putting mulch in my yard right now to keep up with the Joneses, because pilgrimage is this week, and you want to have at least an average yard if you live downtown. No, the entire story there was like we planted seed and I didn't have patience for it, so I ordered, I like to say 6 pallets of sod, but it was at least 4 pallets of sod. And, most people in town here, like I said, I work hard, but they've never seen me do any physical labor. My wife and I fixed up 11 houses in 12 years. It was part of Katrina, did the work, almost all the work ourselves, painted. She can do sheetrock and plaster with the best of them. Electrical work, all that stuff. But when we finished our house, I kind of stopped doing it. And so when he saw me single-handedly putting out 3 or 4 pallets of grass in my backyard by myself, he just sat on his porch and watched, and he was in awe. So he's joking about that because the story gets bigger every year. It's 8 pallets of sod and 110 degrees, uphill both ways in the snow, that sort of thing.
Okay. So basically he was very proud of you.
He was very proud of me doing actual work, because I'm not accused too often of doing non-real estate work or fundraising work or whatever. So, yeah. And every once in a while I'll do that for when we rehab houses, I'll go and do some actual work. Not to set an example for my kids, but I have a very good grasp on how long work should take. I'm getting to the age now where this inflation in the last 7 years is, I don't know what a piece of plywood cost, or it's still a hard concept to see how much people get paid. Because we're 6 or 7 years ago from a $20 an hour handyman is now a $40, $50 an hour handyman. It's tough. Yeah. And I'm looking for an arcade repairman. I'll let your husband retire from arcade repair business. So,
he's a busy man. You should get him on the podcast. He'd be an interesting person to speak to.
No, he would be good too. Same thing. Really, I think he'd open up with me too. So
he might. Yeah, he's an interesting fella for sure. Well, okay. So I was thinking back to the beginning when you're sharing just what inspired you to do this business, and you've been in so many different industries, but I feel like throughout each industry you have these specific, I don't know if they're talents or they're probably skills, I feel like, that you've developed in yourself. Could you share with your listeners what like if you had to erase all your work history today and start over tomorrow, what 3 skills or talents would you bring with you that would be like, no, these 3 are going to help me survive and rebuild something?
I think, I don't know if there's a word for not procrastinating. That is so huge. And I find even when, there's something in your brain that when you think about a task being done,
Yeah.
That's what procrastination is. You're like, oh, I'm going to call this guy, and you're like, I'll call him later. Your brain literally releases a little dopamine, like, cool, I did it. And that's why you forget things at the end of the day, is because you didn't write it down or you had a little list. And I pride myself on knocking a lot of that stuff out. I think a lot of my skill set or benefits or whatever, customer service, just being addicted to, when I was a kid, just being patted on the head. A good example is my Aunt Joe and Uncle Kay were really behind the scenes in a lot of my life. And I just remember going to their house as a kid and washing their car and them telling me at like 10, what a phenomenal job I did, and giving me $5 and just telling everybody. And they did that with their kids and continue to do it. And I try to do it with my kids, but just bragging about how great they did and that positive reinforcement. And that helps me. I think that's what it is. The business post is putting about how great things were,
Yeah.
or like most of my posts are like, aren't they awesome? What a wonderful job. And that's not only from them. My dad wasn't too warm and fuzzy publicly on a day thing. My mom was more of that. And after my parents split up, I remember, especially in my adult life, and I do it now, and I'm sure it drives some of my kids crazy sometimes. But I remember staring at the phone, and my mother would call and be like, I love you. I'm just so proud of you. I'm like, all right, it's Tuesday at 11, and she's like, just love you. And I'm like, okay, thanks, and now I'm literally doing that on Facebook. I'm like, you're awesome. So I think that's customer service. I think that was something different that when I went from working in restaurants, probably 20 years food service experience, had my own restaurant, went into Papa John's and brought the restaurant mentality to a Papa John's. And that's how I got to know a lot of people in town from here, because I was going to business after hours and meetings and chamber things. My theory being, if they knew me, there's no difference from the guy that runs Papa John's and the guy that runs Lost Pizza or CJ's Pizza, because it's a human being. And Friday at 6, you should be going, oh, I should order from Munson & Brothers because it's Ryan and Catherine Munson and you've got a person attached to it. That was my theory there, and bringing real restaurant customer service to that. And when I brought customer service to the newspaper business, it was great. Like, people thanking people for ads, and they're like, talk about staring at the phone, man, thanks for that ad. Oh, okay. It's an ad, and thanking people for inviting us for events at the paper. And when I left the newspaper, the most surprising phone call I got a week after was the former mayor, Robert Smith. I thought he was calling me to be like, good luck selling real estate in this town. And he was actually calling me about to list some property. And he's like, you always called. He's like when he was in a story, and it might be a horrible, a bad story, but I literally read a pamphlet on journalism, well, you're supposed to call. If you're writing a story about somebody, and they don't, a lot of journalists might do it, or a lot of them do it at the last minute. They'll write a bad story, call them 2 hours before deadline, and be like, well, I couldn't get them.
Yeah.
Whereas I'd start the conversation with it. And part of that reason was it really saved some time, because a lot of times I'd hear this horrible story, then I'd call the person it's about, and they're like, well, part of that, but not this part. And once they got to trust me, it was a lot easier. So I left, at least surprisingly enough, with the respect of a lot of criminals and a lot of good people and a lot of cops, which is hard to do in media. And I was talking to my daughter yesterday we're talking about colleges, and she's had some things where one person has made a comment, and she's like, well, I don't like Auburn or whatever because of this. And I'm like, you just said one person. It's hard to make a decision. And I was like, but then again, I bought a newspaper after a 20-minute discussion. I bought a newspaper where I was going to cover people get shot at. I got shot at twice, just crazy stuff. And it was I didn't think about it for more than 20 or 30 minutes. It wasn't 8 hours worth of thinking, It was just, sounds fun. Let's do it,
So that's where your quick action taking and not procrastinating came in.
Yeah, well, and I was obsessed, and I was thinking about this yesterday. I was answering my phone all hours of the night with pizza. What finally kind of burnt me out was when I was helping with marketing stuff, but was running the Oxford Papa John's, which now is one of the busiest ones in the country. And we started staying up until 3 and 4 in the morning. And if pizzas got more than 20 minutes late, I got called. So I'm working all day and then coming back in the middle of the night, and I just couldn't let go of it. And that happened with the newspaper. I was sleeping with the scanner in my ear, and it's happened with real estate. I'm a little better now at it, but I still want to talk to every single person. And the size of the house doesn't matter. It's really just connecting the thing. And I probably need to find a better way to phrase this, but I tell people when I meet them to look at houses to buy, I'm like, hey, the normal realtor sells 6 to 7 houses a year. I average about 60 or 70. I don't care if you buy a house. And it's not probably the best phrasing. I'm like, I want you to buy a house if you want to buy it, but there'll be no pressure from me. So what do we say? Procrastination. I go
Procrastination,
to work early in the
action
morning and try to
taking.
knock out stuff, and so that's action taking, I guess.
And then
Customer service is up there as a emblem of integrity. Of calling people back and doing all that complete thing. The rule of threes. I should have thought something like that. What was what were these?
The question was
what would I start over?
Yeah.
The community involvement thing. I remember hearing a stat like I'm a 25 or 26-year-old where it said that like 75% of people volunteer 5 or more hours a month, and I was like, at that point I had like volunteered 0 ever, And I started doing some stuff. I was involved in marketing with Coach Nutt at Houston Nutt at Ole Miss, doing something for his daughter. I found out that they gave away tickets to games. I'm like, well, isn't your wife connected with the Boys and Girls Club? Why don't we do something? And we did 2 games a year there for the 2 years I was there, and had hundreds of kids and got the media involved. And, I got to meet the guy that sold Cokes and did that. And so when I came down here, I did a little of that when I was at the paper. We started having parties at our house and stuff, but it was really after I got out of the paper and got into real estate. And it wasn't about real estate. Like it was, I think I did one event where it was at our house where I had like my logo everywhere, and like I got a big check, and I remember handing the check away, and I'm like, this isn't all my money. It just felt weird. And so I've never done it again. I threw away the big giant check thing because it's wasn't my money,
Yeah.
But if I had to start a business, like just saying, I know these things, but maybe I lost all these experiences and I had to read it off a piece of paper, I'd write a long note about like, be the social mayor of your town and promote other people. And in the aggregate, you'll win. I've had times where I didn't go back to the jab, 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 right hook, and ask for business. And this year, that's been my motto, is to ask for business, and it's doing pretty good.
Good.
But I didn't realize how many people that, if I'm being magnanimous and not asking for business, thought, number one, it's easy to think I'm too busy. And then number two, the other was like, oh, you're so successful, I wasn't going to bother you.
Yeah.
Which I've had a lot of that now that I've had conversations with, getting close to my top 100, friends or acquaintances in town where I'm like, hey, I need, I could use some business. And you're like, well, I didn't want to bother you with this $250,000 house. And I'm like, it's my responsibility, but it's a good lesson that I've learned, And right now I'm in talk about growth period. Like everybody has plateaus and all that sort of stuff, where you get down on yourself or you're bummed out. Like I've been talking to Nathan Wilson and Muddy Water Graphics every day about, I got to have a table thing. I got to have a tent. I need to do this. And we need to get, just different marketing type stuff. And I don't really buy ads. I don't buy ads on Google or rarely on Facebook unless it's funny or something. I try to do a little organic stuff. And then
I still remember, I don't know if it was an ad or just a reel you did, but with the monkeys.
Yeah,
Was that an ad?
Yeah, and that's what I like about the AI now, because I used to have to bother Nathan or my brother Eric, and I'm like, hey, I need a monkey escaped in Mississippi or whatever. And now, like, the AI can do it relatively quickly, So and that wasn't, and that's been part of the difference this year is that, like, before I would have just put it up, and this year I might sneak my real estate logo on there, which is valid because, like, some of the conversations I've had, like, hey, if you appreciate everything we're trying to do in the community, I say we because up until my wife had cancer, my wife was outdoing me on stuff, and she had breast cancer right before COVID, and then chemo hit when COVID started. And then it really hurt her bones, and she had a bunch of back surgeries. But, like, she was a hawk. Like, she was, like, on 5 different boards doing all kind of stuff. So she still not only helps me, but she has to put up with me. Like, it's a full-time job. She calls it OCing. Like, the restaurant term open and close is over Colin. Like, I come home from a day like last week where I filmed with my glasses and did all that stuff, and I come home at 7 o'clock at night and have to sit in the corner and just calm down.
Decompress.
Yeah. And, and the part I'm trying to explain more is how much real estate work is involved in that. So, like, right now I have, like, 15 deals going on, and I'm trying to list 3 or 4 more houses this week. And the reason I can manage all that is because I'm going to work early in the morning, staying quiet, and really not digesting as much social media as I think a lot of people do. I digest a lot of nerd stuff at night, like marketing stuff and YouTube videos, and I'm hundreds of hours in AI stuff now, not to make monkey videos, but to understand the skill set. I'm not even trying to make AI an assistant. It's not even that. It's just seeing what's coming, as far as, like, everything in the world has changed in the last 6 months as far as, like, just writing the description of a house has changed, like how to
Absolutely.
get the most attention for that,
Yeah. I want to address actually what you were saying about how I think that does seem to be a simple assumption. I think when people see people who are highly successful and they're doing things, you do seem like a very busy person. It is an easy assumption to believe, oh, they're too busy for me, or I don't want to bother them. So for your listeners, what's one simple message? If you could just speak to somebody who might be feeling that way and wanting to reach out to you right now, maybe they want to sell a house or whatever it is, what message would you like to give them right now?
There's a ton of time in the day. I just can't. I hear all the people all the time, like, how do you do all this stuff? And I'm like, I take naps a couple days a week.
Yeah.
Like, there is a ton of time in the day, especially if you plan ahead. Like, if somebody wants to go look at houses today, it's going to be tight, just because I have this and another appointment and then 3 or 4 real estate things and all that. But you give me a day or two's notice. I had somebody last weekend who asked me about looking at a house Sunday morning. It was Easter. And I'm like, all right, but it's got to be at 9:30, and as long as they'll let us in the house. I was like, but at 9:30, like, I've already made my kids breakfast. I can go look at the house. It's just 1 hour. I come back. It's not. I'm blessed to have that opportunity.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm supposed to be saying I'm never too busy for your referrals, but man, if you give me some time, it's usually there's times like this where it might be an hour or two where I can't return a call, but when I got into real estate, I used to wonder what realtors are doing all day, and I still ask that question. And we all, the toughest thing, and I've said it on a couple national podcasts, if you hang a picture of your kids on your office wall or really put them on your phone staring at you and imagine they were watching you on closed circuit TV, nobody's had a perfect day where you're working the whole day. You can't, nobody can work at that peak efficiency. And I said, it's the opposite of tigers coming at you. Like if you're hunting a tiger out in the woods or wherever tigers live a million years ago, you got to be on and aware the whole day or you're going to die. And if you put that kind of pressure on yourself, you're going to have a stroke. But like nobody's that efficient. And most of the stuff that takes me time is usually either I'm waiting on somebody else, or I really haven't done a good job and have to be accountable that I don't have the help. So yesterday I was sitting like, the only stress right now I have is that I've got 5 houses that need to get stuff fixed, and this guy can't get to it, and this guy can't get to it. Well, I've worked hard and been blessed through whatever, either through attrition or God's grace, that I could post something on Facebook and say, hey, I need a painter or handyman to do this, blah, 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 blah. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
The last time I did it 3 years ago, I met these guys from D&D Construction in a house. Like, I posted it. The guy from the paint store who I did a lot of business with, he's like, why aren't you using D&D Construction? I'm like, who's D&D Construction? And then that took care, and now they're probably too busy, partially because of me and partially because of other stuff, of doing a good job.
That's a happy problem to have.
Yeah. And, the answer then is hire help. If you get busy, it's a hard thing to do, even for me. But so, like, I can ask for help. That goes along with my theory of this year is, like, I need to ask for business, ask for help. My wife and I decided we're going to do our crawfish boil again after we skipped it for 1 year. And I was like, if we're doing it, like, I'm calling my 10 super friends. And I was like, I know you've sponsored some of my stuff in the past. Like, here's the options. Not should you or could you. Like, here's the options. And I called the Air Force Base. I'm like, I need some volunteers. I called Renee United Way. I need some volunteers. Like, I'm calling in the favors. And it's for charity, so it's not just like my birthday party or something. But asking for help, and that's same thing for real estate. Like, I need some business to, my wife's had a lot of medical bills. I got 3 teenage daughters, and the give it out in slices. It comes back in loaves. Part of giving, and part of living in gratitude, and we've done that when the brokest we've been is the most generous we've been to a fault. I mean, donating money on credit cards is not always a great idea. But firmly believe on the theory that if you spend 80% of your energy doing that it'll come back. And it comes back in the most interesting ways. I have somebody who saw me dancing around at Dress at Hairspray, the musical, the other day, who is now looking at houses with me. And his comment, he's like, well, me and my wife saw that and just figured if he's willing to put himself out there and do this and blah, blah, blah. I'm like, because I always ask, like, how do you hear about, did somebody recommend you or whatever?
Yeah.
And then sometimes I have to throw in the qualification, like, just so you know, I sell a lot of houses. I'm not just running ads and stuff like that. So,
I hope, like, to you listeners, if you've never seen Colin play in Hairspray, you gotta convince him to do it again next year.
I've
I don't
got a
know if
recording of it,
do
so
you
I
really?
can't post it online, but I can share it with people. So
You gotta see it. It was amazing. I got to see it in person, and I was so proud of myself that the flowers I brought for him matched his dress at
they
the
were
end.
great. I
It was
know.
perfect.
Well, it
And
was
they
a
were just
growth
wonderful.
experience, and it was going to make me uncomfortable, which is why I did it. When Sarah Wade, who from Golden Triangle Theater, tricked me into doing Oklahoma just 2 years ago, it was my first time ever. And I was, even on that, not worried about being on stage, but worried about as soon as I started hearing the kids, people under 30 singing, I was nervous about keeping up with them or letting them down. And with this one, it was the same thing. Like, it wasn't just that I was in her dress, which was somewhat uncomfortable, and heels. It was, with all these super talented young folks, and I'm worried, like, feel like I'm singing like a hack. I only had real one opportunity to actually sing, and like sing properly and not being funny.
Yeah. Tell us a little bit about that. Would you say that's your strategy? Because to me, I don't know. I'm guessing that even a lot of the listeners, a lot of people deal with imposter syndrome. They see something that they want to do, or maybe they're scared and they need to step into their courage. And it sounds like you essentially harnessed your courage and challenged yourself in a way that helped you beat what could have been imposter syndrome. Would you say that's true?
Yeah, and I mean, I have moments of that all the time. Most of those are the quote already said, like trying to be too perfect about something. Like, I think of the other marketing I could do, or the difference between doing marketing locally and nationally or whatever. Yeah, with the theater, I mean, I didn't think about it. Going back to not thinking for 20 minutes about changing careers, like when she asked me, I was like, all right. Like, I didn't know it was 100 hours worth of practice. I didn't think I'd be dancing. At the time, grew a beard, which I'd never grown a beard before. Now I don't want to let go of it. Shaved my beard for that. And with that, like, I was like, oh, this is good to be uncomfortable. Well, really, until the Monday before the performances, I had never worn a dress, heels, and makeup. Like, at all. None of the three. I'd worn a tutu once for something with the Warehouse Dance Studio, but that was neat. Just for one little minute. And when I went up, I flubbed all my lines the first night. Like, I was like, I'm not going to remember any of this. But then I forced myself to go on TV on WCBI with Keeley, not only in dress, in costume, but in character. And I was scared to death and didn't have any ideas, and it went swimmingly well. And quite honestly, it's one thing going and drag in front of the theater crowd, but like, I was like, I'm going to be on TV. Like, my redneck friends are going to see this. My Ducks Unlimited friends are going to do it. And, just doing it. I wasn't even worried about the comments, but just doing it. I was like, oh, okay, well, it's not, blink your eyes. It's not the end of the world. And I was fine after that.
Yeah. Was that would you say that's your, like, tactical thought process, is just saying it's not the end of the world? Or
I
like,
think
what
so,
more is
yeah.
there
Like,
to it?
the public speaking, I had somebody at Corporate Papa John's before I had to speak to a really large audience I wasn't expecting, that told me, like, everyone in the crowd is pulling for you. They want you to be good. So I believe in that, but I mean, like, I still get nervous and I still have bad days on the TV thing, and or anxiety about putting something out. Like, I'm sure there's somebody driving around that doesn't want to use me as a realtor because I wore a dress. We're in conservative Mississippi, but like, you just can't, think that people think that much about you. That's a dangerous thing to think. I tell my kids all the time, nobody's staying awake at night hating you. There may be a couple narcissists in your life who don't like you or whatever, but people are busy with other stuff. They're not, and you may have heard this phrase, I use it with Keaton all the time, like, it happened to my wife. Eventually the casserole will stop coming on the other end to it. Like, people hate you, but they love you. Like, they can only take so much. It's one of the biggest challenges with Keaton dying. Like, so I told him, I was like, you got terminal cancer, and like, we're trying to do another fundraiser. And I'm like, people go, like, they just look and go, it's not move on with your life, but they're like, oh, okay, I thought we already did something, It's tough. It's a tough reality of life. But it goes on the other side, too, that people only have so much capacity to love on you, too. And so I don't know if that relates anything to the question. I forgot what you asked.
Well, that's okay. I appreciate your insight and stuff, because it's so cool how, like, I think you're a pretty humble person, because you don't. It's so funny how you kind of rattle off these things that you can do, and you're just like, what? It's no big deal. Like like for instance, your ads, how it means so much to people. And they're like, oh my gosh, thank you. And you're like, what do you mean? I just did an ad, because it comes so natural to you. And
Well, it didn't. You need to ask my wife that story someday. So, like, been in real estate a little over 12 years, and about a year and a half into it, I really, like, was putting, we were doing St. Patrick's Day, the first St. Patrick's Day for Zachary's, and I made a video, and it's probably the first video I ever made, and it's grainy, and it looks kind of funny, and it was just, I did make a couple, like, dad jokes on it. And she had, like, all of her close group of friends, like 5 or 6 people, like, I had no idea Colin was funny. Like, everybody just thought I was so, buttoned up and serious or whatever. And so I think there's an equal amount of people who think all I do is screw around all day on Facebook. I think there's people who think all I do is parties. And then I know there's a bunch of people who think all I do is think about real estate, which is the real estate marketing personal growth part is a lot. Like, that's, if you talk about what I'm sitting there thinking of, I'm like, oh, I could do this, or we could do this. But it's so... it's not unlimited. It's so not limited to real estate. Like, I'm just thinking, you've seen me go, oh, he's got this restaurant. You could, why don't you do this, like this, and I just get excited about it. And then the judging part or imposter part of myself is like, well, why don't you start a consulting business that does that? And I'm like, well, I'm doing fine with real estate, So
yeah, I know. I've even heard, like, I think multiple people be like, okay, you should be a coach too, Colin. Like, add that to your repertoire. You're not busy enough, right? Like, you don't have enough going on, right?
I don't know. There's still a ton of time in the day. Like I said, most of the stuff that some real estate agents, I don't know, locally, not a lot, have like assistants and stuff like that. A lot of our paperwork, it takes time, but again, if you're not screwing around, it's pretty easy. So I just, I don't know. I'm excited about being around other people. I just do. I really do believe people transfer energy, and it's one of the most interesting features in the world to me that somebody can walk in a room and just change the room. I just love that. Like, just blows me. And that's part of the reason I took it off. On my own podcast, I took I made Nathan Wilson helped me make some silly red and blue name tags that say, am I Colin? And it says I sell houses. And then we put the sticker on crooked. And then people stare at it all the time. But they're like, I'm wearing that. I went to the posh meeting where the, Congressman Trent Kelly and the senator were there and opening up a missile factory and stuff. And there's national politicians there. And I'm wearing my silly name tag. And, like, they're laughing at it. So, like, good, I got the job done.
Yeah.
They may not buy a house from me, but, like, I'm like, well, I was like, don't you want somebody who's trying to get attention for your house? It's the same argument.
Yeah.
Not trying to make it a pitch about houses, but
no, I got you. But it also brings joy, and it's so authentically you, and it's like a unique way to introduce yourself without being like in people's faces, right? Because I know, like, at so many conventions, it can be hard to remember people's names, for example, because there's so many people and they're all pretty clean cut and whatnot. So having your creative artistics displayed right there, I think is very cool.
It's helped me. I've gotten business from it the last couple months, and I did a bunch of silly billboards. Probably the best coincidence I had with a billboard was doing one right before COVID. I had bought a couple, and they literally said, "Hey, I'm Colin. I believe in you." One of them was like, "Show me that smile," and like COVID hit like 2 weeks later, and there's billboards with smiley faces that just say Colin, didn't even say Remax or anything on them, and I was like, I was like, what? I don't know if the world had me do that because something was happening. I hope the world didn't create COVID to balance
balance the joy out.
Balance the joy in the world. But that's I like the size town we're in. Like, I wish it was a little bigger or whatever. And I think, my brand, if I went somewhere else, would work just as well in a big market. I used to be self-deprecating and say like, there's more people like me in New Orleans. There's definitely a higher percentage of non-shy people in New Orleans, who are outgoing. And I'm sure, like, looking back in hindsight, like, my dad, when I was a kid, made me shake the hand of every politician. He contributed to local news stories. Like, he went through parties. He was there at some level. There's always little pieces of it, like I referenced from my mom. And, they fit really well into a real estate thing. And I don't know what they'll, like, moving forward. People ask me all the time about, like, are you going to be mayor and stuff? I'm like, now I say a very metered way. I said, I'm flattered that you bring it up. And I'm flattered when people say I should be in politics or whatever. I get at a certain level, and usually gets above local. Just the way the two-party system is right now corrupts you, or you're not allowed to speak out about your ideals or whatever. And then I got young kids still. I don't want to put them through it. I've seen what it's done to my friends' young kids, even the quietest ones, the quietest politicians. And, it's a little pay cut, too, if you do it ethically. So
Yeah.
I'll see. I think there'll be a time for that sort of thing, but you can have a lot of influence. And I think private citizens still move the needle more than anybody.
Yeah.
It's like the volunteers in this community do way more than any government programs do.
Yeah.
And I don't know. We'll see with the whole AI robot overlords, our wise and powerful AI overlords. Ding.
AGIs.
It's coming. All praise the robots. So we'll see how that goes. I'm a little nervous about AI stuff coming over and taking people's jobs at a time when, like universal health care is into consideration. Because it's my number one bill by a mile. I'm between insurance and everything. I'm $40,000 a year in health care. Like, dear Lord. And I don't have nothing wrong with me. Other I'm chubby, but like I'm not on medicines and messed up. But that's just life,
Yeah.
And so that's a lot these days. So.
Yeah. So circling back a little bit, you mentioned when you were a child. I was actually curious, who was little Colin? Like if he walked in here and sat next to us, how would you describe little Colin? Were you shy or were you very much a people person?
So,
aside from your father,
I would say so.
Were.
Like my parents split up when I was like third grade, 7 or 8 or 9, maybe. Mm-hmm. I was blonde hair, blue eyed, outgoing kid. They called me Tank. Like couldn't tackle me, run me down, kind of outgoing. My parents split up. A little more introverted for a while. Like I was outgoing with my close friends, but like nervous around other people. And I had probably several. I look at them, and you define your own story, like seminal moments. Looking back, where you're like, oh, that helped me come out of my shell. Probably the biggest one is trying talking to people. Like I was a nervous, a broke kid with a poor mindset. Like when I lived with, it was just my dad, my brother, and I. Like electricity getting turned off all the time. I was working full time from when I was 13 on, and like. I started with my buddy Matt. I started a billiards club, pool club at our high school. And our high school had like 2,000 kids. And I hung up posters everywhere. I mean, when I'm talking about like I knew Matt and like 3 people and would hide in the hallway and be nervous and bite my nails till they were nubs and just real quiet kid. But in 8th grade, I asked permission to hang up all these posters, do all this stuff, expecting like 10 people to show up because we wanted to go shoot pool at the bowling alley down the street after school. And like 200-something people showed up.
What?
And like the proctor, our teacher, whatever, he was like, I won't go up there. He's like, and I went up there, and it was more about that I survived it than I did I don't remember any great speech. But I got through that, and I'm like, okay, and that became part of like my idea. I'm like, oh, you can, define yourself or identify yourself. I'm like, oh, I'm the guy that started this huge club. And then I started working in restaurants in New Orleans and other places and became a lot more like outgoing, But I mean, it was somebody who said, like, a lot of times, going back to my kid, talking about somebody said, oh, you don't like this college. And they're like, oh, I don't like this college because they're not good at engineering. I'm like, who told you? One person told you that. I had, my aunt telling me I was awesome at this, or my friend telling me, like, man, it's really easy for you to talk to girls. And I'm like, you self-fulfilling prophecy. I made it pretty easy to talk to girls. Now, one thing that I thought my wife thinks was real interesting was, like, I didn't go through a phase where I was, everybody has phases, but like I didn't go through any long phase where I was wearing like hip hop clothing or whatever. And so like I had friends who were touring with the metal band Pantera. Like they were in New Orleans, and these were black clothes, chains around their necks, nose piercing, whatever. And I'm going with like an untucked polo shirt, khakis, backstage with these people where there's like hard drugs being used. I'm like, hey, what's up? And for everybody would be like, this is some narc right here. I'm like, nah, it's just I don't want to dress like you. It's okay. Like we're friends. And
I'm okay being me.
I'm okay. Yeah. And so that was part of it. And I think back to the question of who was I? Yeah, when I was a young kid, pretty outgoing. There were probably from age 8 to 12 or 13, a little trauma from being that way, a little embarrassment or tough times from being poor, and more of a poor mindset,
Yeah.
And it took a while to get over that. And then also, which a lot of people have, I think more than it's a male trait of counting on one person to come save your day.
Yeah.
So like I had a partner at my restaurant in New Orleans. By the way, he bought the restaurant back. We got out of it. We still talk, but like I counted way too much on him. Like I probably worked harder than him for a few years and, regretted that, or held it secretly against him or whatever until we finally had a confrontation. Then I went and worked for somebody else who I thought was the best and was going to keep promoting me. And then Katrina hit, so he didn't do anything wrong. Then I worked for somebody else who gave me a great job. Same thing, but I thought he was going to promote me or whatever. And he was the first person to realize that you couldn't keep me like in a cage as far as being behind the counter of a restaurant. Like I was just too anxious and wanted to go out and shake babies and kiss hands. And he let me loose when I got to Oxford, and it was tremendously successful. I still know people there that are higher ups at Ole Miss because even the 2 years I was there, I was just always on the road meeting people. And I just finally got to a business where that benefits itself, being out in the community and stuff. And
Yeah.
yeah.
Could you paint a picture for me? What do you mean for the listeners out there who might wonder if they also have a poor man's mindset? Could you paint a picture of what that looked like for you? Like, what did you mean by that?
So, a big thing now for me is limiting beliefs, and we all do it to ourselves. And we do it, for a while in real estate, like when I got going, I was doing 50 or 60 deals a year. So I'm like, I want to find somebody doing 100 deals a year in a small town who isn't a team, who isn't, who's really just doing it by themselves. And I went to conferences to meet people because most agents who are doing that much have a bunch of help, which, by the way, is a good lesson to learn too. But like they'll be like, I'm selling 300 houses. No, you aren't. You and 5 people are selling 300 houses. But that's part of the real estate game. But like a poor mindset or limiting beliefs are like when even me, I can't find anybody to sand this floor and finish this house. Have you really asked? Like I've had clients who are like, I couldn't find a plumber. Like there's 200 names on our plumbers in the phone book. 3 people didn't show up and you gave up. Like that's how I have friends who are good people, because I kept calling and kept calling and kept calling. I don't do it all the time, but like there's limiting beliefs of I can't do this or I can't run a mile or whatever. And when I was a kid, like it's odd that like I was able to work 40 hours a week in high school and survive high school and way more than that senior year and towards college of working 70, 80 hours a week. My father was disabled and my brother worked some, but like I was supporting the household on that. But at the same time thinking like, I can't buy new clothes, like simple stuff, literally a poverty mindset, and that I couldn't go on trips, like never went on vacation, ever. I don't mean kind of didn't go on vacation, like didn't go on vacation. And those sort of things where you're like, and part of that opened up for me. My mom got remarried when I was like a 10th grade of high school and it wasn't because of wealth or anything. It was a completely unreasonable man, Frank Jahelka, my stepfather, and he was a chef. And I like to say my mother died with a 25-year AA chip in her pocket, and he died with 25 years worth of AA chips in his pocket. He went down swinging, but the years he spent with me in high school, like, and I remember how unreasonable it felt. Like I was so thrilled to get to go to a movie. Like I hadn't gone to a movie in like 6 years because like I don't want to spend $20. I don't have $20. I don't have $20. I was making $30,000 a year in 12th grade. Like it was there, but it was going towards something. I just didn't think I should do it. Like I had one pair of shoes junior and senior in high school. Like that's insane, but you don't know what you don't know. Like you don't think of the possibilities out there. And in hindsight, like I can remember we're driving to a movie and to meet my mom after work and go to dinner and a movie, and he stopped and he's like, hey, let's stop here. And there was like a peach stand. We stopped there and he gets the peaches. I'm like, are we gonna be late for the movie? He's like, it's all right or whatever. And then he saw like a bunch of people like literally jumping off a rock in a river. He's like, oh, let's stop and jump. I'm like, we're going to be late. He's like, he stopped at a payphone, because this was the old days, payphone, called her and said, all right, we're going to go to the 9 o'clock movie instead. And we swam in the river. And I'm like, to me, this was the biggest day ever in how you going to change your plans. And he was just like, oh, let's do this. Let's do this. Let's do this. And that helped me a lot growth-wise of like getting rid of these limiting beliefs, Like you have responsibilities of work and stuff, but man, the more you can peel those away. I'm trying to work on this with my kids where like it's easy to tell my daughter who's in the Croft Institute at Ole Miss that, she should go to, in junior year, they go to study overseas. She can go for 1 semester or a year. It's hard for me not to push her and go for a year because this is a once in a lifetime opportunity. It shouldn't be. It is if you say it is. I haven't been back to Europe. I could rather than go $20,000 into debt to buy a rental, I should have gone to Europe, I probably still can. So those are those kind of things where you can't do it, or it's very easy to get bogged down over the next year with gas prices, utility prices skyrocketing that I can't do this, I can't do this, I can't do this, Yeah. And part of that goes back to the accountability and work-life balance. Are you really trying to get as much business as you can, That doesn't mean you have to be hype or whatever. But like That's always the argument is like, can you go bag groceries? I've been around people who spend years and years and years trying to maneuver politicians to do this guy, to get this guy on this board, to do a deal, and it might be a $500,000, $600,000, $700,000 deal that profits $40,000 a person. And quite honestly, if they had just went and bagged groceries for 5 hours a week for those 4 years, they probably would have made the same amount of money or done their day job, like done their job. And it's some people use it as the other argument, like, I'm not going to paint my rental house because my time's worth $150 an hour or whatever. Well, are you really maximizing your time? Some people, I know a lot of personal growth people who do that, who are like, well, I'm hiring this assistant, this assistant, this assistant. I'm like, are you doing anything? And some people can make $60,000 a year and spend 30 of it just getting other people to help them so they can say they made that much money,
Yeah.
And that's a matter of efficiency, and you can go on the flip side and just be tough on yourself for not doing enough,
Absolutely. So it sounds like just hearing more of your story, it's so stinking fun because each time I meet you, you're like a much deeper thinker than I even thought you were. And I already thought you're highly intelligent and you think about things you think about things deeply, and I think that's probably why you also have the skill in humor, because you see the good in things and you bring the joy to things. And anyway, I just really appreciate that about you. So what I'm hearing throughout every one of your stories is you're really solid in your values, it sounds like, and you're getting clear on what those are. Like you keep clarity on what those are throughout each of your stories, which I think is so cool. And then prioritizing, it sounds like, what actually matters to you and what's really important right now, it sounds like you're really good at. So can you tell me, how did those things play into your... You brought up work-life balance. I actually like to use the term harmony because I feel like balance, just in my line of work, people have this visual of everything has to have an even portion time-wise. Like family has to have this much time, and so does work, and so does health, and all these things. And that's just not how life is. So I like the term harmony. But how have you being... like staying solid in your values and prioritizing well and keeping that integrity and leading with joy, how have those helped you with maintaining or creating this work-life harmony that it looks
part of the
you
bigger breakthroughs, they happened at really the same time, the fall of like 2014, I think, when I started in real estate. The Gary Vaynerchuk, he was talking about work-life balance. Like, you're allowed to can work. Like, and there's been a peak over the last 10 years of people who were like, and most of it's reflected off of big like computer culture and tech people who were like, I need my time or whatever, and they're trying to fill somebody else's balance. So I referenced that like some same amount of people probably think that I'm on TV or play around all the time, that think I work all the time, or play with my kids all the time, because I posted up until recently when they were older teenagers, they wanted, it was okay to take a picture of them every day or whatever. Yeah. Ryan Munson at Munson Brothers, who mentioned all the time, has the same problem. He thinks people think he travels the world or lives this dream job of running a bar, but like he's put a lot of work into that place, you know what I mean? And he's there a lot, but there are people that thinks he's there all the time and never hang out with his kids. And, there's other people's judgment of you're trying to be this perfect work-life balance, It's sometimes I reference it. We're like, hey, I know you, but, I don't really do social media. I'm like, you just shared that. They're like, what do you mean? I'm like, you just shared that you don't do social media. That's the same thing as going on social media and sharing that you don't do it. I was like you want connection. You want a reference point of like, you don't do it. I'm like, okay. That's what I said. I'm like, okay, don't do it. I was like, email, social media. And I was like, it's just another version of what we're doing. As far as values go, the seminal moments, that was like, oh, like I'm allowed to work hard. Because like when I got to the newspaper, restaurant, I was working 80, 100 hours a week, staying up all hours of the night. So like real estate, even though it's every day, it's not very rarely past 8 o'clock at night, So like it's a piece of cake. And then I've had 2 times in personal growth where I've heard stuff where it's like, one was this big study where they studied 50,000 kids from France, England, United States over 60 years, and it was about success. The number one correlation for success for your children by like 8-fold. So like there was 2% of the kids, and there was like 16%, was you read and played and spoke with your kids from birth to age 9. That's it. That's it. Not who you grew up, not what school you went to, not how much money you have. I remember seeing that. Luckily, 2 of my kids were still under 9. So sorry, Allison. Good luck. And then she was a little older. And then the frightening statistic that, in Western culture is that by the time your kids move away to go to college, you spent 95% of your time with them. Mm-hmm. So, I have almost no regret. Everybody's going to have some regret. Almost no regret of how much time I spent with my kids. Because I used to drag them to events all the time. Go to breakfast with them every morning, drag them everywhere I could, especially when their mom got sick and stuff, because that was a challenge for them too. And so my daughter Allison for a long time would go to Kroger and people "You're Allison." And she's like, "Who the heck are you?" She's like, "I saw you on Facebook." Because I'm proud of them, and want to spend time with them. So that was a thing, and I'm doing better now. Probably the next feature of what I'm focused on is, that other than being healthy, the biggest correlation between why men die younger than women is that they don't have deep social relationships, And I have a lot of friends, but I've only recently, in the last couple of years, started intentionally focusing on friendships with, if you'd called me, I have 50 people I could call for bail. That used to be my standard. It was who can I call for bail? Probably 20 that wouldn't say a word, but probably 50 that I could call. And then, but the other question is who can you call for a flat tire? Who's going to hold your casket? That sort of thing. And so I've been trying to work better with Stephen Jones, our mayor, Nathan Wilson's a good friend of mine, Mike Davis at Remax, and other people of doubling down on those and not just being hey, And because I meet so many people, there's all these, maybe not all the relationships are super deep. Now, the more interesting part is some of them, because I'm dealing sometimes with charity and these traumatic situations, you become friends really quick. Mm-hmm. So I had known Doug Pelham 2.5 years or so, casually, but we saw each other every week, and now we talk every 3 or 4 days a week. He's one of my best friends, but Rhonda Sanders from the Sheriff's Department calls me, and Zachary's is on fire at 4 a.m. on a Sunday on my wife's birthday, mm-hmm. while we're having a crawfish boil, the big fundraiser at our house that morning. And I go over there, and she couldn't get in touch with Doug. He was already on the way. We get there, and then it's me and him. His restaurant's burning down.
Wow.
And you become better friends. That escalates your friendship,
Absolutely.
And then we threw a fundraiser for him, and everything's been wonderful.
Well, there's a point here that I want to note that you didn't specifically say, but I know I feel like a lot of society right now feels a disconnection, even though we're more connected online than we have ever been. I think in person, people feel more disconnected from their communities. And so I just want to call out, and maybe you can agree or disagree, but you showed up as the kind of friend that you want. Does that make sense? I like to say, be the one. If you want more friendships, show up and be the kind of friend that you wish you had. And it sounds like I know for a fact, if I needed bail, I would be calling Colin. Be all right, Colin, come get me. Because I know he would be there, because that's who he is. That's the kind of friend he is. So I didn't mean to cut you off. Go ahead.
No, that's if you want to get invited to parties, you got to go to parties.
Yeah.
And I've had times, and again, part of that is having, people, your friend groups change and you stop going out when your kids get older, or kids get younger, or kids are in different schools and stuff, And again, when my wife was sick, it's just hard to go out, and then I like going to bed at 8:30. So there's a lot of events I miss out on and things I don't want to do,
Yeah.
And then we're in a weird spot too that I don't get invited to every single thing because people think I'm already going. And it's not like I feel left out, because believe me, I love not doing anything at night. But people all the time where were you? I'm for what? And they're oh. I'm I didn't even know it was happening. For me not to know it's happening is a blessing, but for not to get invited, I'm this is good. But then again, I started thinking oh, I don't send out too many personal invites myself. So I'm working on something like that now, where I write more notes to people. My friend Scott Ferguson does a great job of that, of writing personal notes to folks. And
yeah,
I'm a little more goofy, where I call them or send them a video or send them a podcast with a note or something I like. But
hey, that works. You've got your style.
I think so.
I still remember the first video I got from you. You were just so encouraging. I was why is he videoing me? Sending me a video. And I still have it, because it it just was like a little pick me up that I didn't know I needed that day. I was like, that was so kind. So I like your style.
I don't know what I did, so sorry.
I'd have to. Yeah, I don't want to misquote it. So anyway, you were just encouraging and made me even more excited and less nervous to come on the podcast with you because we did another episode and that was the first podcast I'd ever guest spoken on. So it was.
Well, it's good to have it local because like you probably have some opportunities to do some ones where like it's a random email from somebody in coaching and you're like, well, I don't know if it'll help or hurt to do it, you know?
Yeah. It's definitely interesting. I've been on a few now, but I got to be selective with which ones I'm going on, especially with like all the moving schedules that I'm managing and stuff. But it is super fun, and I really enjoy yours. It's really
thank
fun.
you. Well, it's been I love the time that I'm in here. Like there's days where I don't want to come in and be like, because I'll schedule 4 hours in a row of them. Like here we go, and then I blink my eyes and I'm done. And other than the missed phone calls, it's a pleasure. So.
Yeah. And then it's funny because like once you're into it, I feel like you're just so in the zone and you're with the people and you're hearing their stories and you're so genuinely interested rather than focusing on being interesting, which I know we've all been around people like that who want to be the interesting one, but being in the room with you, like you're so genuinely interested, which I feel like changes the entire energy of the room.
Well, thank you. And that's part of the hard thing is biting my tongue of, and that's when she got cancer. Oh, my wife's got cancer too. Like, it's just such a hard thing. And every time I see our friend Keaton Blocker on Facebook, he posts something, and then I'll be like, have you tried beetroot? Which is one of those people suggesting he eats some weird food to survive. He's like, I've looked into everything. He's like, I'm on the internet. I'm 27. They told me I'm dying. Like, I've checked whatever you're about to tell me, like whatever concoction you have. And he'll post that to somebody else, and then I'll be like, well, what about grapefruit juice?
Or singing karaoke. Like, go sing karaoke. I hear singing is healing for the soul.
I learned in Oklahoma I had to sing a very little with the group, and then that inspired me to do my thing for my wife for her anniversary, and taking those lessons was just great because I'd always been shy. My dad was a semi-professional singer, sang opera in New Orleans, sang at piano bars and stuff, and so I think we had the dual reasoning of and he wasn't, but let's say my stepfather was a raging alcoholic, and he wasn't. But he's an alcoholic, but he wasn't raging. He was an awesome alcoholic. But he's a raging. I never saw him drink. But if you have an abusive stepfather who's a raging alcoholic, so that's the answer. Hey, Colin, why do you drink all the time? Well, my stepfather was an abusive alcoholic. Or, why don't you drink? Well, my stepfather was an abusive alcoholic. So that's why I didn't sing, is because my dad was an American class opera singer for a few years, sang all over New Orleans and other places, and we would go to decent concerts, and he'd be like, he dropped that note or whatever. Meanwhile, my brother sang with every chorus ever, doesn't think twice. If we called him in here to sing now or sing at McDonald's, he would. The opposite, And so I've found a lot of joy later in life, like how thrilled my mom would be to see me on stage or my dad hear me singing. Because I took, with Isabella Powell Golden Triangle Theater, probably 40 or 50 hours of voice and piano lessons to sing a little ditty to my wife for her anniversary. And do you know the story of that?
I don't. I've not heard this one.
I'll tell people in here real quick. It's a little self-serving, but our 20th anniversary was 2 Octobers ago. And so for our 20th anniversary, we were going to have a party here at the tavern. Then we went to go see, and our song from our wedding was Ben Folds, called The Luckiest. Ben Folds is a piano player. He was the artistic director of the National Symphony Orchestra until Trump fired everybody. And so we were going to go have our party, and Allie Benton, who does violin stuff, and her friend were going to come just play, orchestral music and stuff, and that was going to be the song. They were just going to play it. And then we were going to go. We went to D.C. that weekend after, and he was recording a live album, and that was the last song he played. And then we went to Jamaica. So I was already being a good husband. Well, only 2 people knew, but what I'd done is spent these 7 months before our anniversary secretly learning how to sing and play the song on piano.
Wow.
So at our party, I snuck over to the piano. He acted like he was having a technical problem, like trying to get the background music for that, and then I started playing and singing and just tore the room apart. So, and it went okay. In the moment it was magical. So,
what did she do? Like, I want to. I wish
dying.
I could see her face.
Yeah. Well, there's a video of it somewhere. So.
Is there? Okay.
My kid killed my kids. My kids were just. They were poor whoever they date is just in trouble, you know.
Aw.
So that's good. And I also like recreated like when I had proposed to her, I had put the ring on a little blue truck on a train, and so I got her a new emerald bracelet or whatever, and I brought it out with our cake topper with the train around it. So I did that again too while I was singing in the middle. So every husband there, friend of mine, was hugging me like crying, and then there's like, "Fuck you, man! Jesus Christ!" He's like, "My anniversary's next week." I'm like, "Learn the kazoo. It can take 10 days." So, but that was like I'm talk about Yakov Weinstein was my coach like during that whole time, and it's just of course it's going to be perfect. Like of course that moment's going to be perfect. And I do so well at business when I'm doing something for the theater. When you have this overwhelming major purpose, you're just like, it's not that you're just focused on that, but like you have to get your work done. If I'm practicing 100 hours to go in a dress for hairspray, like you better get your work done,
Yeah.
And that's like right now, a lot of my stuff is like trying to think of some new marketing stuff and getting ready for things and trying to stay focused. There's a trend in a lot of sales commission businesses where you have a really good month and then a bad month because you didn't, they say you didn't keep your foot on the gas,
Yeah.
So that's why, like I posted last week, like I'm having a phenomenal month, but I need to have 50 real estate related conversations. And I got close to 50. I stopped keeping track because I knew it was headed there. But I'd like to have that every week,
Heck yeah.
And most of them aren't leading into sales, but they're just at least like, oh, Colin, I think it would be very easy for somebody to be like, oh, he's all hype and doesn't know the technical part of it or whatever. I don't stay awake thinking about that too much though. So
Yeah.
I had one other agent say to me about that once, like, well, Colin does all this advertising, but he doesn't have any letters after his name, so he doesn't take his profession seriously. I'm like, how much time do you have before you list your house? And they were like 5 weeks. I'm like, promise you'll call me back. And they called me back, and I was like, all right, I have 12 designations behind my name now. So I think it's more than anybody in the state. And they're like, what the heck? I'm like, so either I spent $4,000 and got all these letters behind my name and spent hundreds and hundreds of hours and I learned a whole bunch of stuff, or I spent $4,000, spent 100 hours, and these are easier to get than you think. And I said, the truth is somewhere in between. But I said, if that's your bar, that the letters behind the names matter, I've got those. And if it's the marketing, I've got those. Like I tried, in my mind, I wasn't mad. I was just getting rid of an objection.
Yeah.
Like,
absolutely.
oh, he can't do this. Okay. And my friends used to do that all the time, like tell me I couldn't do something. Now, sometimes it was like, go get the baseball from the other side of the fence. Like, I bet you can't jump that fence. But, to tell me I can't do something, I usually like get focused. And I used to be like that and then drop it. I'm like, and that's what happened like in high school. I lettered in bowling, and which is a weird thing to do. And then I traveled to competitive footbag events like Hacky Sack, and I was at under 21 nationals for shooting pool, and like get really, really focused, go, and then, okay, I get it, is what I like to say. Like, I get it. I see what you're doing. Mm-hmm. That happened with journalism a little. Like my first 6 months of journalism, like poor Joe St. John, the late Joe St. John, but like I broke a story where he got fired, and they called me in front of city council to give up a source, and I was like, I'm not giving up a source, like that. And the guy who worked at our paper, Brian Jones, is like, you've been in journalism like 6 weeks and you get to defend a source publicly, and like that's like your life's goal. And then like 4 weeks later, these teenagers got arrested by the sheriff's department. They held them for like 5 days. It was a holiday weekend, and like I called the sheriff's department. I'm like, I'm writing this big long article. I talked to all the families, and I was like, y'all, you can't keep them for more than 48 hours. Like that's a civil rights violation. And they let him go, and I ran the story that they let him go. But like the parents to this day will tell me like, you saved my kid from going. I'm like, I just wrote the story, but it was still like, and I went there, and Brian Jones is like, what the? No joke. 2 weeks later, the sheriffs go check this schizophrenic guy out in the county, and he opens fire on him. They get a gunshot, and I'm with them. I'm like with them. And Joe Young, a retired detective, throws me behind a car. The car gets hit with bullets. The trailer behind us gets hit with bullets, and they killed the guy. I'm in the middle of all that, shots in it, and like I came back to the office. I'm like, I get it. Like same thing. Like I read the pamphlet on journalism. Like you do these 3 things, and that's something that's interesting about real estate is that like there's new challenges all the time. When you meet. Sometimes you meet interesting people. With listing a house, it's more like trust. Like they want to know you're capable of doing what you're doing. You get the price right, and then you're actually doing something. With buying a house, it's more social interaction and stuff like that, which is, I think, is a blast.
Yeah.
So,
would you say so? That's so interesting. So, circling back to you were talking about journalism and how you reached all these accomplishments or milestones, if you will, in journalism within the first 6 weeks? Because I feel like I've heard this story before, because there were other things that you've done. And what was his name? John? Or what was the guy you just referenced?
Brian Jones in the
Brian
newspaper?
Jones. Yeah. Who's like, what? 6 weeks in and you're already doing this?
Well,
Would you say
they were
it was
just
because-
happenstances, but you do the right thing and things happen. You know?
Yeah, yeah. But would you say that some of it was blissful, not blissful ignorance, I guess, but you had like this simplified version, like, okay, this is journalism. I'm doing these 3 things. Do you feel like that is something that helped you be good at that business going into it?
Absolutely, because it's just like, oh, this is what you're supposed to do. And some of that goes back to, I guess, ethics and integrity. It helps a lot with real estate, or when I'm flipping a house and I tell people the easiest discussion I have with a homeowner is, you have termites. It's horrible, but you got to spend thousands of dollars treating and fixing it, but you have to. So I have that all the time where somebody will call me about something at one of my houses, and he's like, what? And I'm like, okay. And they're like, well, I mean, what do you want us to do? I'm like, fix it. I'll have to find the money. And multiple contractors have been like, it's so refreshing to hear that. I'm like, well, I mean, you have to. Like, my name's on the line. Like, can you put your name to it? Is a great,
Yeah.
theory of life. Like, are you, if other people are watching, is every single thing you do, can you put your name to it? And I do think about that a lot. Like, legacy is greater than currency is a good phrase that I don't know where it came from, but I like that one too.
Yeah.
Where it's like, can you want your name on this? Do you want to cut this little corner? And of course, I've made bad decisions like everybody has in my life, mostly with Oreos. But that's that's one of the things if you're supposed to do it right, all right. Like, it is what it is. But I try to move pretty quick on those. There shouldn't be long thought processes on ethical stuff.
Absolutely.
Maybe it's somebody else's version of your version versus your version of it, but usually my stuff's like right away. Like, okay, so.
Yeah. So aside from Oreos, then, was there anything of your choices that you thought was a failure, but it ended up being like massively successful, like more successful than you thought it should have?
I mean, like, I went to a Jesuit Catholic high school where, almost maybe of the 200 kids, maybe 5 ended up in food service. A lot of engineers, a lot of lawyers and stuff. So, at that time, I was like, oh, well, I'm not the smartest kid here. I'm a failure because I didn't take advantage of these opportunities. And working, we had a restaurant. We sold the restaurant, and it wasn't a raving success. And I worked at Papa John's and worked long hours and missed time with my wife, and that wasn't a raving success. And I had a newspaper that I lost a lot of hair and got stressed out of doing. But talk about a formula to be the perfect realtor or community dude is meeting people and learning how. I wouldn't like to say that. I won the Mississippi Press Association Photograph of the Year because I took thousands and thousands, 5,000-10,000 pictures a year until I learned how to do it. What a great advantage that was when I started in real estate and couldn't afford a professional photographer. By the way, I'm a professional photographer. So for 4 years, I took 300 pictures of my own houses because I could, and I knew how to edit them. I'd do that. And knowing everybody in town and knowing how politics works and how to get a street fixed and how to look up stuff at the courthouse. What a great blessing it was to be at the paper and know where the bad neighborhoods and know where the good ones are and that sort of stuff. And same thing with Papa John's and knowing about marketing, learning about corporate America. And not every failure was awesome, but you got to fail forward.
Absolutely.
And so.
Was it, I think, John C. Maxwell was on a podcast recently, and I guess he's writing a new book. He's written like 3 books on failure.
He's going to write a book about writing the recent books.
Yeah. But one of the analogies he gave about like failure was that there's, how did he phrase it? I don't want to mess it up, but essentially he's like, there's a good miss and there's a bad miss when it comes to failure. The good miss when it comes to a failure is you've learned from it and you've used it to improve yourself. Like you said, fail forward. And then there's the bad miss where you essentially make it mean something bad about you. If I failed at this, now I'm a failure, so I just need to give up, essentially. And so for the listener who's maybe in the bad miss, who just had a bad miss or is in that mindset, what message would you give them right now? Because it sounds like hearing your stories, you've sort of embodied this understanding that I might miss, but I'm going to keep swinging, and they're going to be good misses because I'm up for the challenge of making something better.
Yeah, and Jakob Weinstein, my coach, that helped me a lot over the last couple of years. Yes, last year was a rough year. Like my wife kept having surgeries. It was a bad year locally in real estate. It was a bad year for me, which sometimes is a self-fulfilling prophecy. Like you have a bad couple of weeks and then you just get down on yourself. And I have that too. Like last year was bad. I had to borrow money to survive last year. But hey, I'm blessed to have borrowed it. I'm tougher from getting through it. I learned I need to ask for business, that sort of stuff. But his coaching insight to it was, you've been all right. Now, I don't know if he likes it. Everything's been all right till now, but he's like, he doesn't like how I say it. I'm like, you're fine till you step over the rail of the bridge. Like you've survived. Like slept in a car, or you've had whatever bad. Like I've slept in houses with no power. Lived without hot water for months. Didn't have a phone. Like I've been through that stuff, and like I haven't been through bankruptcy or stuff. Been close, but like I'm not where I want to be financially, even remotely, and stressed about it. But like everything's been all right. Like it's been all right so far. Like everybody's got some good stories. There's very, very few people, and even the part of the reason I like working with like D&D construction, part of the thing that touched me at the beginning was the first person that came in there who redid my floors was the most bright-eyed, energetic dude with face tattoos and all this stuff, and I have a soft spot for people in the addiction community. But I didn't know at the time that Jonathan Marshall's his name. This was like the second time he's redoing floors. He was just starting in drug court because he just reached his 2 years, I think, a few weeks ago. Mm-hmm. But like he's in their D&D construction is with Crossroads Ministries and Bodybuilders Ministries. These guys are praying before, praying every work day. They live in an apartment for like 6 months while they work for the company. Then they go out on their own. And like he met his wife there, and like he learned all these skills, and when I was like, hey, you want to take a chance at redoing that mantelpiece? And he's like, well, I don't know how to do it. And I hooked him up with a guy that did it. He's always got, like every house we do, I let him do one inventive, cool thing at the house. He did our beautiful bathroom. Like that gives me energy too. And like, but again, in the moment, this was the guy fixing the floor, and I think he's energetic, and that's awesome. And then I was like, then you come to find out, like he's coming off the worst. Like nothing I've had to deal with, you know what I mean? Like again, eating Oreos in the middle of the night and crying yourself to sleep. But this dude's like strung out on drugs, going to prison, going to lose his kids. And 2 years later, he's got all his kids and he's building little businesses and doing work. And you just get to see that firsthand. And that's the best example. And that's a guy with tattoos on his face who, most people wouldn't think I'd want to hang out with. And I just know that's where the goods are. That's like where the story is like the. It's not even, that isn't a charitable thing. Like I just met him and I was like, this guy's got energy. And the reason he had energy is because he had been saved in every respect of the word. Yeah. Like he had hit rock bottom and he's like, all right, I'm here. And that's inspiring to see because like he's working with people who fall off the wagon all the time. I'm in a business where 75% of people burn out every 5 years. Like that sucks. That's all forward facing sales though. Like it's a gut wrenching sort of thing because it's a male trait too, but real estate's 75% female. Like, if you're not making money, you're not killing something and dragging it home, then you're not a good dad or a good parent or whatever, which is a tough sort of tangible thing to put a hold on. So,
absolutely. So it sounds like, I don't know, you reminded me of just how powerful the underdog story is. Because if you think of any of the like most successful people, influential people, just who've written books or they're just out there changing the world, almost everyone that I can think of that I connect most with has come from something unimaginably hard, like has gone through a hard moment. And I think part of that is it really gives you a perspective shift on your own life. Do you feel like that's kind of what this guy did for you? Was like, you're crying, eating Oreos in the middle of the night, you're stressed, but you see him and what he's doing and how he's building back better. Do you feel like that inspired you?
I see. Oh, absolutely. Yeah, no, I'm his biggest fan. But I mean, there's people I meet people like that all the time, and I'm just like, how do you get through that? And that's part of the discussions that we've had here. Yeah. Even with you, that was the highlight we picked out of your episode where you were talking about abuse. Yeah. And it isn't it's very hard to live in that space where you're like, you're 20 years ago, you'd be grateful for what you had today. You know what I mean? Because some people you'd be grateful what you had today. I'm like, well, I might not want the pressure of owning 13 rentals that, aren't making money right now. You know what I mean? Like, that's not, I don't know if I'd do that. Like, there's difference between what would you do if you did it differently that sort of thing. I probably would have had a government job and just walked in, I don't know if you could have kept me caged up in any situation other than I think it's inevitable where I am now, or at some space. I'm excited for the next few years because I think I'm open to more stuff. But like, man, I get inspired by, even the people we're doing charity events for. Just like I'm addicted to that juice. I'm addicted to that giving the perfect gift on Christmas or leaving the anonymous tip or something. I just love that, man. And like Doug and I at Zachary's, whenever we do an event, we just go across the street and we're like, man, we disrupted the world a little today. And I just love that feature of life, that you can just kind of, there's so many things that people don't realize that like, oh, when's somebody going to do something about it? And I'm like, and sometimes I literally go, Lee Park is a good example here. Like people just kept complaining about this damn park. I'm like, let's just go over and fix it. And then, by the way, talk about not asking for help. One of my best friends is the mayor. And we don't talk about like politics. When he needs help, I help with something, but like we're just friends. Well, we did like a solid 2 days of work on a public park with no permits, insurance, or anything before he's like, dude. He's like, what are you doing? I'm like, fixing the park. He's like, somebody gets hurt. We're painting and clean. Y'all helping clean that. And then like the park supervisor came over and did some work. But like, sometimes the private citizens are the best. But I literally got tired of hearing people complain about it, and it frustrates. It hurts me. I want the right person to get blamed for stuff. I'm a big champion of that when people on Facebook are I'm like, yeah, but that's really this person's responsibility. And why don't you ask them? This ain't Metropolis. Like you can get in touch with anybody in this town you need to get in touch with. Like once you get to like United States Senator and Congress, it's a little tough, but it's you can find out who's behind everything, and most of the stories aren't nearly as interesting. Just like I learned from the newspaper, they're not nearly as interesting as you think they are. Like as far as depth of corruption and all this other stuff.
Yeah,
they're just dudes. The guys who work at the city want the city to be clean, and the trash guys want to pick up the trash. They don't want their boss to yell at them. I tip my trash guy today. So
yeah, I think it's interesting. You'd be surprised at how much one can get done if you're willing to have a conversation, it sounds like. So, because just like that's the message I'm getting from you. Because it is, we've all been around those kind of people not those kind of people, but people who tend to complain a lot more than they show up and take action to change what they're complaining about. And that's a really tough spot to be in. And it's, from my experience, it's hard to get out of it unless you take ownership and take action. And a lot of it starts with having that conversation.
Yeah, and it's the only place that probably bothers me. I'm dismissive of some people like that, and I feel bad that I don't like try to be more compassionate and stuff. But there's a part of me in there that's doing that, like that's being like, I just don't want to deal with them. And it may be because it's an old me who used to make excuses about everything. But when I see those people, it's the same 8 or 9 people who are just like, oh, this sucks, this sucks, this sucks. I'm like, okay, everything sucks. No matter where you go, it's going to suck. I've actually seen one of our biggest complainers moved away from here, and I won't say where she moved, but like her Facebook page is still like, oh, Destin sucks, and they're on the beat. I'm like, it's still, and you don't want to dismiss them because it makes them one-dimensional. Like the best part of this podcast, and like with Mr. John from United Deli, is Mr. John was kind of the foreign guy who I helped, and he's real nice. But like then I talked to him for an hour, and I'm like, oh, he gives this depth to him. He's not just this person, And
yeah.
It's hard to vilify somebody when you actually know them. And then sometimes it's empathy, like, oh, she's had 2 abusive husbands, and that's why she's mad and complaining. I've quite often, like one time I talked to somebody, and they were literally found out that their dad ran against Robert Smith or somebody to be mayor and lost. And so, their whole position of life is he's a villain
Gotcha.
or whatever. And that happens. And on Facebook, it's easier, again, because you're not doing it. But that goes back to my nobody's staying awake at night. Like some of these solutions and questions are so easy. Like, why don't we have this? And I'm like, or why don't we have Trader Joe's or Target? Trader Joe's, we're poor. That's it. Starkville too. Starkville's only $2,000 average income over Columbus and Lowndes County. Trader Joe's is not going to come anywhere making less than $70,000 a year. That's it. We're not getting a Target because we don't have 250,000 people within an hour. They're not going to be building any stores in a place like that unless it's on a major highway. That's why they're building one in Tupelo. Are we getting Aldi's? Yes, we're getting one. They just got to finish negotiating. But you just call Aldi, and that's again from the newspaper. Like, okay, everybody's asking. I'm like, I'll just call the guy and ask why I haven't done it. And you can give up and call once, which I've done, or you can just call every plumber in town till you find one that'll come fix the thing. Like I have a plumbing problem at my house. I know Andrew Benton. I could get Andrew Benton to come fix it,
Absolutely. Yeah.
But I just keep listening to the gurgling. They were at my house yesterday. I could have just told the guy to fix it. So, yeah, there's excuses like that all the time. And whenever you're like, I see it when I'm planning for an event. Like, we're having a crawfish boil at my house. So, like, all right, now it's time to stay in the back deck and get Mike Talley over to build the roof. Like the projects you have to do because you want to be ready. And, I got the Lowndes County Sports Hall of Fame next week. And, we had to order some banners. And so I could have ordered them last week. But I did this morning. Like, this morning at 6:30. I'm like, all right, I got to do it. So I did it.
That's your action taking again. I like it.
Giving yourself small tasks to
Yes.
do, like, and how incredibly small. And there is whether it's God or a feature in the world, I tell people in sales all the time, if somebody crosses your mind, do the, forget her name all the time, 3, 2, 1, make the call. Holy cow, make the call. I cannot tell you how many times, and one of them I had in real time a couple weeks ago. I'm eating lunch with Nathan Wilson, and I said something like, I was like, yeah, man, I got this lady on this house, and I said, I need to call her. I should have called her this morning because she's probably wondering why her house hadn't sold. And bling, 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 she called. And I'm like, there is a feature in the world that gives us this little, we ignore it. I think women are better at a sixth sense or feeling uneasy about a situation. Like the only 2 houses my wife told me not to buy, I didn't buy, and the people that bought them are still complaining about them. Like, just knew. And there's this, we have these systems in our bodies that we don't know about. Like, when you're thinking of somebody to call them, and I can't tell you how many times I've called somebody, especially in the last couple of years, I've been intentional about it. I'm like, man, hey, how you doing? And they're like, bad. I mean, it's just, shit, I'm glad you called,
Yeah. Or they're like, how the heck did you know I was thinking of you or needing someone to call me right now?
Yeah.
That happens all the time. I just chalk it up to intuition because I can't explain it otherwise.
No, it's absolutely there. There's something there. Maybe Elon Musk or somebody will figure it out eventually. There's some electrical force in the world.
We'll be able to harness it a little bit better.
I think we can now. I just don't think we jump on it enough, Like today, I drove by, like I said, where those guys were putting up the banner. I'm like, oh, that's interesting. And I went, wait. I used to say, wait, asshole. But I was like, wait. And I turned around, actually accidentally ran a red light, turned around, and came back and took a picture of them. And I was like, yeah, that's it. And found out what they were doing, and that's it. 3 seconds. But it gave me energy. They know I like them. They know I care about them. I'll post it later, and maybe somebody else will be inspired by it or whatever. But yeah, it happens all the time. So
yeah, and I like to keep tying your practices and calling them out and sort of tying it back to the good for business, because you really are you are good at business, I feel like, and you are so good with people, and there's so much to offer with. Like, you have so much to offer, and then the people you bring on have so much to offer for things to be good for business. And one of the things you just did, and sort of what do you call it? Like a theme that I'm seeing through everything is one of my mentors, he did this huge study and whatnot, and there's this principle for excellent relationships, and it comes down to everybody wants to feel seen, heard, acknowledged, and loved. And that's exactly what you do in like every example. If you replay this and you hear your stories and everything, that's what you do. And I don't know if you recognize that in yourself, but you are so freaking good at it. Like, even just circling back, you just saw them, you acknowledged them, you heard out their story, and you loved them. Like, you showed them love, and I imagine you're going to share about it, or you already have. Probably.
I will at some point.
And it's such a beautiful skill that I feel like a lot of people miss and they don't understand. And relationships, like, there are relationships in business, personal life, like every single interaction you have with a human is in some way a relationship. And so if you can take Colin's skill that seems like just this natural God-given gift that he's likely intentionally developed over the years, and start looking at people and being more interested in them than you are trying to be interesting, and find a way to see them and hear them, acknowledge them, and show them love, your relationships are just going to like explode in a good way. Like,
well, part of it is training yourself to go for the short reward of it is just that little smile back or something. When you see somebody like, and again, I'm so glad that cell phones have cameras and there's just a place to put stuff, with the businesses, I think there's something in the back of my mind too about how much suffering is involved in starting a small business and how much anxiety that I'm just pulling for them. I just am. I think of my friends at Up Down Cafe, the official bacon provider, Colin Krieger. I haven't had bacon in like 2 weeks, but
We need to go back.
Of
They're
them,
so good. They're my favorite.
they opened up right before COVID. And so, like, I remember sitting at home and I called my brother. I'm like, are they open for drive-through or whatever? And they were the first people we did during COVID. That was, I said, put my money where my mouth is, which was I bought a gift card from them and gave it away if you shared their page or their post, not my page or my post, because I didn't need any more followers. I was like, man, I want them to be excited because they just opened right before COVID, which sucks,
Yeah.
And they thrived through that. But I did that we probably did like 20 restaurants in town those first couple of weeks of COVID. But that was addictive. Like that wasn't, there's nothing about Remax on there, but like I liked doing that. Like you're helping these people and,
Absolutely.
what else are you doing?
And can I share a little story about them?
Yeah.
That you may not have heard. Maybe I told you this, but I absolutely love and appreciate Up Down and how they run their business and how they train their employees and stuff. Because when I was new here, my family and I moved here the end of like 2019 or something. So it was right before COVID. Yeah. I had no idea where anything was. I was running my own business like in health and wellness at the time, and we didn't have internet. So I ran into town to find a coffee shop, and I found Up Down. And I was there. I was in the zone, typing. I had my amazing coffee that they brought me, which is delicious. And the next thing I know, I look up, and they're like putting the chairs up on the tables, and they're trying to be quiet around me. I'm like, oh my gosh, are you guys closing? I didn't even know the time. They're like, no, like you were in the zone. They're like, you keep working. We've got a bit more to do. You're good. And it meant so much. It was so stinking kind of them that I will never, ever forget it. Me, this person that they didn't know, I was new to the community, and they're still just so generous with their time and like caring about their client or their customers. And it was amazing. So they're my all-time favorite still. I love them.
I love them. And the same thing, just great energy. Like they seem happy that you're there.
Yeah, absolutely. They're so good at it. So you mentioned legacy earlier in the conversation. So I have a couple of questions that I'd love to hear from you. So paint the picture for me. What is your vision, one, for this podcast? Like, do you have a bigger vision for this podcast?
The main thing I wanted when I started was to have some video, more content of me available, like if you're searching to find out something about Columbus or the area here. Not necessarily like, I just knew that AI was picking more stuff off of video. That was it. And it wasn't necessarily, I don't want to be Joe Rogan famous. I just think there's a merit to every single human being. There's a few people that aren't that exciting, really, because they're not good interviews. Like they talk themselves into like, oh, I don't want to be in the public eye or whatever. I'm like, okay, well, you made money somehow. Did you not work your whole life? And when I challenge people like that, they're like, what do you mean? I'm like, well, you worked somewhere that needed to be in the public eye. No matter what, even if it's a government job, you had to. That's one of my biggest fascinations here is I have so many friends in the public sector who work for sheriff's department for years, and then they're like, these people are freeloading off the government. I'm like, your retirement's a negative sum game. It's crappy and shitty, but like I'm paying for it. So like calm down. But going back to, what are we asking here?
What is your bigger vision for the podcast?
I think that it warrants enough at a certain point with good marketing to at least get into a statewide or southern, like people are interesting level. You know what I mean? I don't know what it would take and at what point or whatever, but I don't think 50 episodes is that much. It's hadn't even been a year, not even close to a year yet. So we're rocking and rolling. I need to learn or sit down and learn and do a better job to do it. But everything, I have a priority, which is I need to make money to pay bills and stuff. So, and that's real estate. And this part of it, I think so much of the content is evergreen. And I hope it helps some of the people. I've had several people on here who've gotten business from,
Yeah.
One of them just called me, Ladrico Isaac from the Yo Bar. Like, we've talked a couple times. Like, my kids love we're eating wings there tomorrow night. Like, it's basically a black restaurant. There's not a lot of white people go there, but we had an interview and I had friends talk to him, and we became better friends. And like, so there's not trying to fix any major social issues, but man, there's a lot of people worth getting a light shined on in this town.
Thank you for sharing that. I think absolutely. And like also we know in business awareness is huge. Like it's part of the game.
Well, and getting to know somebody and
so-
trust them. Trust is the biggest
Yeah.
part of most businesses, knowing that there's going to be a decent person at the desk at Updown. I think that's where in our community, Updown and Zachary's do a better job than most of like, oh, they've got good help. They're going to take care of me. I can trust that I'll go there and everything's going to be all right. As opposed to some of the smaller restaurants or stuff that you're like, I don't know if they're going to have this food this day or if the waiter's going to be rude or whatever.
Yeah. But the awareness that you're bringing just with your podcast into our local area, I feel like is another way to help it grow, because we both know good energy grows and people want that.
Well, it's
right?
it's contagious.
Yes.
Yeah. And like the also the same way I decided to buy a newspaper after 30-minute discussion, and my kids go to college based on what somebody else told them. You know, this has been my challenge with economic development groups in town and other people who the guy came here. I met a guy who's working at the steel mill, and he's like, my HR person told him that Columbus sucks. That's it. Columbus sucks. So he lives in Starkville, and he's like, I can't stand it. There's nothing wrong with Starkville. There's nothing wrong with Columbus either. There's challenges in both communities. But one person told him that, so he moved there. He almost quit the steel mill because he didn't like where he lived, and he bought a house. So now he's selling his house, and he's moving over here. And the reason he met me is because of the podcast. And he's like, there's all kind of interesting people in both towns. Like, he's just like, he just doesn't want to live around a bunch of college kids. But one person influenced him like that.
Yeah.
And like one person in a lot of these businesses tells them Starkville sucks, and then they move to Columbus, or tells them Mississippi sucks. And that's all it takes is a couple little interesting conversations, or somebody to go to Zachary's, or if somebody comes to Columbus this week or Starkville this weekend, they're going to be blown away at all the festivals and events and stuff going on, and people just don't. You wouldn't think we'd have that here. You know?
Yeah, they wouldn't be aware of it if it wasn't for like the work you do and your team and what you guys share. So
Yeah, and sometimes, like I said, that's all it takes. And I can't. It happened to me the other day, but like, I forget who I was talking. It was it was Brian Buffini, who I've sent you his podcast, and he does real estate stuff, a lot of great personal growth stuff, ton of free content. And then I heard another podcaster be like, well, yeah, I don't really listen to him because he's always trying to upsell you something. I'm like, I've listened to 400 episodes, man. I've never heard that. But like, if he had told that to somebody who wasn't as familiar with him, and I had sent you 2 episodes and you said that, you would have probably been like, well, he's just trying to sell me something without any justification for it. Like, that's just, he listened to an episode where he did. Of the 400, maybe like 2. And then he was like, well, never mind. And he missed out on all what I consider great content and great stuff that's free. You know what I mean? Tony Robbins is a great example of that, who talks about it in his own thing. But him and Gary Vee was always free. But Tony Robbins and Brian Buffini in like 2013 and 14 went from 90% paid content, 10% free, to the opposite. Completely flipped on a dime. Because of both of them have cited Gary Vaynerchuk saying that, where they're like, you know, you better adjust to this right now. People aren't going to pay for your stuff. Charge a premium for the 10% instead of charging the 90%. I wouldn't have been nearly in as much personal growth if their stuff wasn't free. But there's still a whole generation of people who every Tony Robbins thing seemed like a scam or another course or whatever. And now he's got so much stuff for free that, like, I feel like I owe them to buy something every once in a while because they've helped me so much. And again, one person's, you know, if somebody tells me something horrible about a restaurant, I'm like, and I've bragged at other restaurants, and they're like, I saw somebody post something about one of my friend's restaurants the other day, and like I posted something great, and it was all these great comments, thanks for doing this fundraiser, and they're like, they serve underage kids at 1 a.m, blah, 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 and like, it's Zachary's, and he's like, we have been closing at 9:30 for 5 years. You know what I mean? But she's got this thing in her mind of that or whatever, you know what I mean? I had somebody, I got that little thing. It was the biggest honor you can get, really, from the Exchange Club a few months ago, and one lady commented on there like, don't think much of him. He never called me back when I asked about a house. And I'm like, of course, I'm like, well, I looked up her name and number. She's never called me. I don't know where I have no idea. I sent her a message. Ironically, I commented and she didn't comment back. So I was like, well, I'm sorry if I missed your call or whatever. But again, same thing. They're just in that one little specter of whatever. You know. Believe me, there's always somebody laughing at you. I've had that tenet for a long time. Like, there are people that way wealthier than you or think they're way more important than you, and there are people you think are wealthy and successful who are on their last legs and stressed out, and that's why you can't think of too much. Nathan Wilson thinks I have a great not a lack of respect, but like I've sat there with him and talked to relatively famous people in the hunting space for like an hour, and then I finished the conversation. I'm like, all right, so bow hunting, turkeys. He's like, yeah. I'm like, well, I hope that works out for you. And like I turned to Nathan, and Nathan's like, he's got to go. I'm like, why? And he's like, there's 200 people in line to get his autograph. And I'm like, all right. Like, well, and I'm like, cool. Well, good for you. And there's a beauty in that sort of ignorance and not getting deference to everyone, or at least being respectful.
Yeah.
My politician friends, I do that all the time. We have a wonderful lunch. We're real good friends, and then at the end of it, I'm like, here's your list of shit to do.
Yeah.
Somebody asked me who Trent Kelly was. He was a congressman who was at that ribbon cutting, and I was like, oh, it's okay. He works for me. And when I said it the same way my dad did. My dad never gave money to any politician, but that's how he felt at the end of the day. He's like, these guys work for me. I'm going to shake their hand and be respectful, but like it's just a tenet of old school libertarian people.
Yeah. So I like that perspective of it, because they're real people, and when you can speak to them on that same level, I feel like it is a sign of respectfulness.
Yeah, when you get some depth to them, like I said, I've only really met maybe 2 or 3 people in my 21 years here in Columbus, and they're not even evil. They just have messed up personality types. It's like a narcissist sort of thing, and they're not even necessarily dishonest. They're just doesn't play well with others, like they write on your kindergarten report card or whatever, and they just can't help themselves, and they're hurt people or whatever. But the rest, the other 100 that people have told me are just bad and all this, it's like once you talk to them, you're like, they may have made some mistakes or been misguided or whatever, but it's pretty just like it's difficult for some people to be positive all the time. Like I look for it and I embrace it, but like, I get pissy about some people and mad about stuff like that. Yeah, it's part of
normal. That's going to happen.
It's healthy too. You have to have some. I yelled at someone about a year ago. A young gentleman sent my daughter, nothing too inappropriate, but inappropriate considering he knows our family. And I went and yelled at him, and he was scared, and the neighbors were scared. And it was good. I thought it was healthy. I came back, I was bouncing off the walls.
That's what dads are supposed to do.
Yeah, that's what dads are supposed to do. It's the only time I've ever had that situation. But it was a good release.
Yeah.
So
if that doesn't work, just sing a song to him. You might scare him away.
Put my dress back on and sing a song.
Put your dress on.
Yeah, and like I said, getting to know people, it's hard to do. It's hard to talk to. We talk about it in real estate in our office all the time. Like, go to these social events, meet these realtors. It's hard to make them one-dimensional evil people when you get to know them. And even it's just the empathy to know what they're going through.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like,
absolutely.
I've got a great example. His son is going to school in Louisiana, graduating from Mississippi State. So Michael Anderson is an agent with Krylak. His son went for MSMS, was and the reason I got to know Michael Anderson, Michael was in real estate. I was there for like 6 years, and I put something on Facebook looking for a kid to clean out my attic. And his kid came over, and his kid had gone to MSMS, which was on my older kid's radar, but not, he made it a little more tangible. He was going there, but he was still working, cleaning up my attic. And he got a scholarship at Mississippi State, and now he's going down to, I think, Tulane in New Orleans to do some stuff. And but every time I see something like this kid's awesome and I'm proud of him, I tell Michael that he did a good job being a dad. And I remember thinking, I don't think I've ever had this conversation with Michael himself. I remember thinking, like, Michael worked in real estate, and I was like, man, it seems like he should sell more. And then, like, really did. Like, he's working a lot. He's doing good. Like, he's a top 10 realtor. But I was like, man, this guy's got the skill set. There's no way to say this publicly without thinking like I'm dogging him. But, like, I was like, I don't think he'd sell more. Like, I think he'd be the best. Like, he's got the personality type. He's a hard worker, all this stuff. Why isn't he? And then his kid goes away to college, and the next year he jumps up, and he's now number 1 or 2, just amazing. Nobody says a bad word about him. Hardworking, does foreclosures, which are the toughest things in the world to do. And what I didn't realize is this dude was being a single dad for the 4 years that I'm sitting there, and I wasn't judging him. I was literally like wondering, like, why this guy seems like
it's a curiosity,
working his ass off for his son, like. And I didn't know. You didn't know that part of the story, so he was somewhat one-dimensional in my mind. I wasn't dismissive of him or anything. It was really me being a nerd going, how is his marketing working versus mine? And I'm not even really competitive. Like, I like, there's other agents in our market that do the same volume as me and don't run an ad, Pat Witten's and no Facebook account, nothing. And I'm like, just a different way to do it.
Yeah, it's helpful for the data, though.
But I had made him in hindsight, one-dimensional in my mind. And then when I got to know him and hear the story, and then I see his son go on all the success, I'm like, oh man, he was triple down on his kid. Like, that's awesome. You know what I mean? Like, he wasn't, just in a different version. Like, that's so impressive. And you don't know that part of the story. And it's easy to dismiss, like I said, dismiss somebody, or something happens and you're just like, oh my God, absolutely. I didn't know that. I didn't know that about you.
Yeah. And one thing that I absolutely love and am impressed with stories like that is, it seems as if, like, a lot of the clients that I work with, they haven't gained that kind of clarity or understanding of what success needs to look like for them in their lives. They've got this idea of success that was adopted from somebody else in their life. And it sounds like your friend here, he understood what his kind of high level of success was. And it was being a present dad, building up his son, and still succeeding at work.
Yeah, he was doing fine.
And launching his son into the world. And then, of course, he goes and launches his business. Yeah.
And I said, he was great before and then phenomenal after. And so it's just interesting thing where you're like, I'm looking from a distance. I'm like, and you can use your imagination. I'm like, oh, well, maybe you don't know.
Yeah.
And there's all kind of stories of like people where you're just like, I wonder what the story is on, that's the question. Like, what's the story on that building? What's the story on that thing? And the hardest things I deal with are like estate properties and people splitting up. I've dealt with a couple this week where like families fighting. And I left a message with one person who's been thrown in the middle of it. She's like an executress. And I'm like, listen, I'm the only person you've talked to in the last 6 months dealing with it. You only have to talk to once. And I was like, if you call me back and authorize me, I can get the appraisal done. You'll never have to talk to me again. I can email you everything. You can turn off your phone. And she called back a couple hours later. She's like, I've been waiting for that call. She's like, I do not want to deal with this. I don't know how I got in the middle of this, but I'm like, put me in the middle. I was like, give me the ball. I've been through it. And I said, really, seriously, like, just, I'll
put
text,
me in, coach.
I'll text you when I email you, but we don't have to talk. You don't have to even think about this stuff. I was like, you have to make decisions, but you don't need to have conversations. And she's like, that's what I needed. She's like, I'm not, because sometimes people, the executors and stuff don't get paid. And somebody did it in like a noble thing. Well, then the person that put them in charge, dies, and then the wife doesn't like them, and then they die, and then the kids don't even know who they are, but they're still the one legally responsible. And they're just
so
like,
it ends up being such a convoluted mess to have to deal with. But I'm glad that you were able to step in and help her. What a gift!
No, I like that. I like that those sort of challenges. If I want, especially local attorneys, to be able to go like, oh, he's willing to, eat the meat or eat the potato, or there's some phrase we're probably thinking of.
Yeah, I don't know if I can think of that. Like, I don't know which one that is.
Yeah, there's some phrase that's catchy. We'll edit it in here.
Add it in, yeah. So we touched on influence, and we know that negative comments and whatnot can have this negative pull down effect on others and influence others negatively. But looking at like what the Good for Business podcast does and what you do, you've really built this sphere of influence in this community and all around you, and it's so positive and it's so good. So did you ever, when you first started all this, imagine that you would have kind of the level of influence that you have now, or have you always just known that no, I have influence in whoever I interact with, and I'm going to use it intentionally? Like, what was your thought process on that?
I don't know, because I don't know, like, in my mind, other than fundraising, like what I've used it, like any sort of influence. Like, I haven't tried to influence an election or anything like that. So I don't know. I really just like the smile back when I see somebody I know, or if they let me. Like, I took a picture of some people this morning that I need to post, but Tiffany from United Rentals and Carrie Martin from the Chamber, just at Chick-fil-A. I was like, y'all are awesome. I need a picture. And that was it. Same thing. I had to post that. But, I don't know. When I talk to politicians, I tell them the only thing I want out of all this is if I need a letter for my kid, to write a letter for my kid. I don't need a job or anything else. But, and so, that may be something where I cash in that whatever, But it is, I think I would have failed if I tried to do it, if I had tried to just get some global audience, which is what a lot of people do, is they get disappointed because they don't have 10,000 views or aren't making much money from that. Like, I think for me, it was more important to just connect with as many people here as possible, and just not even really just for real estate, just for, I won't even say a support system. Just,
Yeah.
it's fun. It's addictive to, I'm sometimes jealous, and some people are over the top with the being the smiley, energetic person in the room. There's some people who people shy away from. It's like, whatever. And I told somebody the other day we had a meet and greet for the new Link CEO, Ian Vasey, and I knew most of the people in the room, but I told them, like, oh, you love this stuff. I was like, I get anxious when there's a lot of people in the room I don't know. They're like, oh, come on. I was like, I want to know people. I was like, it makes it easier to meet other people. But I said, it's like going to a conference. You and I have talked about before. When you go to a conference, there's usually one moment from one speaker or one interaction in the crowd that makes you could have 20 speakers and 20 seminars, and there's usually one of one. Either one thing a speaker said or one thing or connection that you made in the crowd that pays for the whole thing. And I've never had a conference that's been more than one day that I didn't have that, where I just didn't have some wonderful interaction that I took away from it. And the rest of the stuff's just a blur. Like, why did I come here?
Yeah. I suppose I should have asked first, like, how do you define influence? I would just love to hear your perspective on what is influence first to you.
I guess to say if something moves the needle or solves a problem, but I like solving problems. I think some people may think like social media influencer or whatever, but and that's the self-deprecating part. I don't know, because I'm so hyper-local, if I say this restaurant's awesome, how much, if they get that much business or whatever. But when I started in real estate, and I still do it now, I tell people the most valuable thing you have when I have a listing is that I'm going to take your listing and go visit 4 or 5 other businesses and offices and hand them stuff and give them some cookies and take a picture of them and promote them, and you'll be connected with that good feeling. Well, when I do this, and I'm not telling tales out of school because I've told her on another real estate podcast, well, if I'm listing your house, I'm going to go to find Brad Elliott and bring him the flyer for the house, and find your friends in the community and go to Munson's and other stuff, so that your friends see me working and promote your house. And even if you catch me, you're like, you went to my brother's business and did it? You're either in the back of your mind going, well, he's smart because he went to my brother's business, who is somebody that would help you. Or otherwise I just happened to be working so hard that I went to his office to do it. Like, either way, it works good. And then I promoted their business, and it's just this stacking effect of business. As far as, I don't know, that's the part where maybe I could be more self-confident on influence. Like, I don't know the most important thing I ever said, in a negative point. I can tell you, I can only think of 2 or 3 purely negative posts that I've put out. One was out, he's still alive. Harry Sanders was a politician here, a supervisor, and during COVID he said some racist stuff, and I called him out on it. I thought it was time, put your foot down, because it was local. I don't think national politics, although praise to the Dispatch today printed Trump's quote in there with the fucking word in there.
Oh.
So I texted the editor, bravo, because that's a journalistic standard. If the president says it, it's good enough for everybody. So no matter what your opinion on it, they printed it. It's in the paper today. So,
I haven't seen it yet.
Yeah, no, that's pretty epic. And then I tell them good job all the time.
Yeah.
Good job. That's just like my mom. And then 2 years ago, and by the way, I talked to the guy the other day. My wife she's had 20 back surgeries. She's disabled now. She can move around. But FedEx switched to local providers instead of, Amazon. FedEx was handling Amazon shipping for about a year. And and our packages, and we live downtown, progressively started getting further and away from our door, comically, door, whatever. And then I didn't put this on the post, but I knew that there was a FedEx driver got arrested for stealing packages. And then what they were doing was setting them up. So I thought that might be happening, because our stuff went from our porch to the edge of our steps to one of our steps to the bricks on our thing to the next to the mailbox. And I'm like, and I was like, so I posted a picture. I'm like, anybody know anybody at FedEx? And how old are you? You're a youngster. You're familiar with Ferris Bueller?
Yes.
The Ferris Bueller's Day Off. There's a movie. He calls in sick for school, and by the time his sister gets to school, people are doing fundraisers, and they have signs even when he takes a day off and goes to a Cubs game, and there's a sign that says "Save Ferris," because the whole city is oh my God, Ferris is sick. That happened to me because I complained about FedEx, and had like 200 shares, hundreds and hundreds of likes. People calling me. I talked to the director of FedEx in Memphis, Tennessee, our local guy, the guy in Jackson. He's like, and the guy in Tennessee's like, I don't know who the heck you are that a state senator called me to say you're having problems with a package, but I guarantee you will never have problems with a package. So that's probably the most influence I've ever had because I don't complain, so that when something happens, I guess it works. That wasn't my reasoning. I just wanted a phone number for somebody at FedEx, and I was going to delete it, and I got distracted, and like an hour later, I had calls from all over the state of Mississippi, and the FedEx lady now leaves our stuff like up against the door. But I mean, that was neat, and then I don't get involved. I'm involved in politics, but like I don't try to maneuver stuff or get people on boards I just try to help my friends because it helps the community. And the night before Stephen Jones was on his primary, I wrote just an honest paragraph. I said he's been a real good friend. He's taken my wife to the hospital or taken my kids to school, visited my wife at the hospital, and he's excellent friend. Didn't say anything about Democrat, Republican. That's the closest I've gotten to being involved in politics, but it was honest. He's my friend.
Yeah,
he's a good person. So.
That's helpful to understand kind of what influence means to you, because I was coming from a perspective of like as a mom of 5 boys, I feel like that's my biggest sphere of influence, even though I have a social media following and I've coached all kinds of people. So influence to me is your capacity to incite a perspective change in someone else. That's very simplistic.
That's good.
That's a very simplistic thought process. But I found that I don't think people understand the power of the influence that they actually have, regardless if they're in the public eye or not. A mom at home with her little child has a massive influence on her husband and her child, the same way that somebody sharing a video on social media would have. It just, social media might expand it. And so when I think of you and your sphere of influence, it's just, I don't know if you've thought of it this way, but what I'm seeing is that, even in the, even with the negative influence of those very few comments that might drag on the community, every single thing that you're doing, like your sphere of influence, is literally lifting up the community. And it has such a powerful perspective shift capacity, if you will. And so I just really appreciate what you're doing. And I hope you can, I know you don't take compliments well, but I hope that you can just appreciate that in yourself, that you do have a positive influence on others. And it's not influence in my mind isn't you trying to get something from someone else or influencing people to try and get something. You, as I said at the beginning, you want more for people than you want from them.
Well, I worry way more about my kids in that respect, like if they're listening or paying, and I'm very direct with them where I'm like, if you want to do this, you need to do this. And my proudest moment, which I might have said on your podcast with you on mine, I have a bunch of them with my daughters, but my daughter Julie, I went to this W celebrity or VIP basketball game and literally tripped over my feet on the first play of the game. Yes. And then played a little bit, got winded, came back in at the end of the game, literally stole the ball 3 times and blocked a shot, did good. And on the way to Wendy's after the game, my 13-year-old daughter, who sounds like she's speaking from another dimension, she's like, I just want to say I'm proud of you. You fell at the beginning. You could have let it ruin your night, but you got back up and you went through it. And I'm like, repeat. Okay, that's exactly what I told her, and I was like, "That's just awesome,"
That's one of the best moments as a parent too. So you should be so proud. You've got great kids, you've got a great family, and you're such a great dad. I hear about it all the time. So I love that they're using their own Colinisms against you, if you will.
Yeah. No, my middle daughter's quite good at that. She's more of the angst-ridden teen, but I've told her, if you've got goals, you could drop out of school and I'd be okay with it. I said, but you have goals to do this, this, and this. That's why you need to get a 3.5 GPA at MSMS. It's not because I need you to for my gratification. I was but if you want to do this, this, and this, that's a game you have to play.
Yeah. And so that's what she's working towards. She's like, all right, Dad, let's go.
Yeah, she's a little like me in that respect. Here's the checklist. I got to do it and then knock it down.
Yeah.
But it's equally as important. She's dating someone now, and I'm like, it's equally important that you throw yourself into that relationship and get your heart ripped out by love in high school. than it is that you get a 3.5. I was like, those are all same life lessons, have a blast. Like, just go crazy.
Yeah.
So
Life is definitely a good teacher, a powerful one, if you will. There was something else I wanted to ask you. What is a question? Because as you said, you meet so many new people, and I'm sure in conversation there's a lot of the same questions. But what is a question you wish people asked you, but they typically don't?
I heard a couple of years ago, like a great question asked. Like, I follow the same habits that everybody say, hey, what you been up to, that or whatever. A great question is to, I don't know about for me, but what's a passion, or what project are you working on that you're passionate about right now? Or what's a passion project you're working on? I don't know if that would hit me. I guess I wish more people would ask about personal growth and that sort of stuff. I do like when people ask how I manage my day and my time, or how do you get so much done?
Yeah.
And,
Those are fun. You mean like in productivity hacks, or just the mindset behind it?
Yeah, I think that more the mindset where they're like, how are you getting so much done? And I'm like, and then I'm like, it's not really that hard to do, self-deprecating sort of stuff. But,
Yeah.
my normal answer is I wake up early, and when I'm at work, especially the first 3 hours, I'm not fucking around. So and I'm a nerd learning stuff about personal growth and marketing and houses, because I don't want to dip down in sales or whatever when it should be easier now.
Yeah. So now I'm going to ask you, what passion project are you working on right now?
My marketing stuff. So I've been talking to Nathan Wilson about getting my graphics. I have Muddy Water Graphic Design and Bullseye Printing in Starkville. About it sounds weird, but like I'm designing a tablecloth and a tent for events, because I want to do more events as my wife gets healthier. Like, just there's an Air Force show coming up. I've always wanted to have a Mardi Gras bead, like just to give out parades and stuff, and cups. And I just ordered a hat that has my little car on it that says, "My name is Colin, I sell houses." So a lot of that stuff is on the theme of that. The asking for business part of it, finding clever ways to do that, as opposed to, I don't mind doing hand-to-hand combat, but like this is the right hook of the jab, 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 right hook. I didn't realize last year, like, till I really started in January as part of my New Year's resolution, was asking, like, I need it. Like, we've had $250,000 in medical bills. I don't need a fundraiser, but like, I need some damn business.
Yeah.
And not in a bitter way of sitting at home. I have a lot of friends who are like, so-and-so sold their house with so-and-so, and they didn't use me and whatever. And like, there's very few people where I have to have that conversation of like, kind of hurts you didn't use me, I've only had like 2 times in my whole career.
Yeah.
But at the, now I stopped during the fundraiser at some point. I'm like, hey, y'all are asking a lot of me in this fundraiser. Like, just if you can consider, if you can recommend me. Interesting dichotomy here in town is that there's some people who can't use me. I mean, there's good friends of mine who are very powerful who can't use me because they grew up or they've done millions of dollars of business with so-and-so at another office. And I'm like, well, you can still tell other people I'm awesome. You know what I mean? Like, you can recommend me and use them. That's a fair trade. So as far as passion project, I guess that I'm trying to, most of my stuff, client care and personal growth stuff, like I'd like to do a little bit better on the management side of my business. I don't know if that's a passion project. And I'm so hyper focused. I have to be very careful with my kids. Like when COVID hit, I spent hundreds of hours learning about taxes and a little bit about personal finances. And I'm glad I did, because I'd be in trouble now, more trouble than I'm in. And then I switched over to my kids going to college. And so I do that and try to not have the fear of missing out stuff. But, man, there's some fundamental stuff in college that nobody knows, and even the schools don't know, that, has a huge effect on where they can go and where you can get money from and that sort of thing. And so, like, I'm always trying to make sure my kids can get to every camp and have every opportunity they can. So I'm focused on that a lot with my daughter, Katie, that she can, if she wants to go away to school and go crazy, I want her to go away to whatever school she wants to. So... And just doing that with she's more the typical angsty teenager that doesn't want to talk about stuff. And I'm like, you have to take an ACT course to get your ACT over 30 so you can go to this school and do this and that and that. So, and then also, trying to balance that with not forcing her to use every single friend I have. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I think that was something I was telling Nathan yesterday, my husband, for those of you who are listening. I was just talking to him about Colin and how excited I was to get to be the guest host today and interview the Colin. And I asked him, I was like, what are some favorite things about him, like that stick out to you? And one of the things that we both came up with was that I just want to point out was how, like, you have all these accolades and these really cool history with like businesses and accomplishments, and it still is really cool how I would guess for you your two favorite titles is husband and dad.
Oh, absolutely.
Like,
Yeah, no, that's a much better legacy than anything like the
Yeah.
in the I've heard this too, and I don't think that much of them as I used to now. But Brett Favre, the NFL quarterback who sexually harassed people and stole money from the state of Mississippi. But Brett Favre had an interesting story and an excerpt from his book where he won the Super Bowl MVP and won the Super Bowl, hung out in the locker room, and went out all night partying and came home and took out the trash. And he's like, I didn't get off the field before he's like, this is it? Like, because the movie ends,
Yeah.
And so, like, I've gotten cool awards and stuff and flattering stuff, but, like, you're just like, you come home and throw it on the shelf or what, like, as far as accolades go, you know what I mean? And that's why, like, you have to look for rewards in different space. I get much better when it's just that perfect moment, like you said, like giving a perfect gift or calling somebody at the right time. That kind of juice is so much better.
Yeah.
And that's something I revel in the theater. We practice 100 hours, like 30, 40 days to practice our stuff. And I can't go to bed when I get home because you're dancing and these, singing and dancing are such great outlets and sharing tools, amongst people. And it's just awesome. It's the juice of it. Not even the show. Like once you get to the show, you're just kind of on thing, but just learning how to do that, learning new stuff the older you get, very intentionally doing it is important to me.
Yeah.
And I know a lot of people who just aren't. They're not. I hope I'm way different. I know I'm way different with stress management stuff than I was a year ago.
Yeah.
And like I feel like I had no idea what I was doing in real estate a year ago, like because I had a bad year. It was a better year than 99% of people, but it was still like I was just not happy.
Yeah.
So,
And
but that's a version of it of last year. While it was going on, I'm like, oh, doing great,
Yeah. I like that. It kind of reminds me of just I was sharing on my stories last week how, and I feel like you do this, or this is kind of the picture you were painting, is you figured out a way to work from fulfillment rather than towards fulfillment. And what I mean is you figured out a way, well, it's like you said, a lot of people work hard to try and reach that Super Bowl moment. And then they get there and they're like, hold on, what? Like, that's it? Because they're like, oh, I'll be happy when, or accomplished when I reach that Super Bowl moment. Whereas when you can work from a place of fulfillment, like you're already there and working toward a goal, it's so different, and life is so much more vibrant and alive when you can do that. So I think it's beautiful. Before I forget, I want to hear this. I want to end with like this question. You have a new listener coming, and this is the first podcast episode, and you want them to come back. What message do you want people to walk away from your podcast with? Or
well,
what
I hope
feeling?
they haven't dozed off at this point. Everybody deserves attention. I'm gonna go back to that. Like it's just if as soon as you get to sit down and talk to somebody, and it's a little easier in this thing, but like in this format, like I make the argument all the time that we don't have to go eat and have coffee to go talk.
Mm-hmm.
And especially lunches at restaurants these days are louder than ever. In a small town like this, people are barging in. So like, especially men and women like together, like it's a little different if we're sitting in a restaurant because there's gonna be somebody going like, who's he talking to or whatever, to have in-depth conversations. Whereas this, at least people, I think when we're sitting behind a mic, think that this is the time to talk about it. Like I've had 5 or 6 people cry on the show. Amy Bogue shared something about not passing her nursing boards like she had never told anybody else. Scott Ferguson talked about not graduating college, like dude's managing $1 billion in assets, and he's like, oh, my best people, my biggest people know it, but he's like, he didn't speak about it publicly. And so I think that's rewarding to have people come in here and talk about that. And I think there's some things that, again, making people more than just one-dimensional, that guy that does that thing or that woman that does that thing, We do that because it's an easy thing to put in our mind to file somebody, is that they're like this person or they're that, like that personality, like to chalk them into that box. It's an Air Force wife. Like, that's an easy thing to say, like, oh, there's a yoga bomb or whatever. Like, those are personal growth people, or quite possibly the easiest. I mean, where they're like, oh, they're that, or they're, not as many people in our community probably think of coaching and stuff like that, but like you or Amy Bogue's a tough one. Like, if you follow anything she does, like, she is all over the place, and she isn't one thing, and nobody is. Just a lot of other people have a tough time sharing it,
or expressing it. Yeah.
Yeah, and this is a good place. I think it's a good place for it. So.
Absolutely.
And I'm fascinated, by the way, like, part of the inspiration for this was that the Dispatch was doing something locally, the paper. So they, beyond the headlines on the Dispatch, they usually come out every Thursday. And same thing, like, they're doing a good job getting the people on the thing to do it. Because if everybody listened to their podcast instead of reading the newspaper and making judgment, it'd be a lot better, because you hear the people in here going, well, the reason the ditch is full is because of this, and you have to go through this rule and follow this. And that's what I like being able to explain to people. Like, oh, like, there's reasons behind this, and they're usually just a normal old human being doing the best they can to get through the world. So,
yeah, I think everybody's doing the best they can with what they have and know, and when you can lead from that perspective, I feel like it gives you a bigger sense of compassion and understanding, and it kind of gives the other person a chance to kind of prove themselves too. So, I don't know. Well, I appreciate you, Colin. I know this whole community appreciates you. We love what you do. Hey, if you have a house to sell or buy, like, Colin sells houses. And if you ever have any questions for him, like, or whether it's real estate or you have a recommendation for his podcast, somebody you want to hear from the community, like, reach out. He's awesome. And we'd love to hear from you.
Thank you so much. Thanks for coming on. Hey, guys. Thanks for listening to the podcast. My name is Colin Krieger, and my day job is real estate. If you're looking to buy or sell, I'd love to talk to you. Or if you just want to sit and talk real estate in a no-pressure situation, I'd love to help you. I work with RE/MAX Partners in Starkville, Columbus, and West Point, Mississippi. I can help you find an agent anywhere in Mississippi or anywhere in the country. Just reach out to our office at 662-327-7705 or find me anywhere when you type in 662-329-SOLD. Hey, guys. Thanks for listening to the podcast. My name is Colin Krieger, and my day job is real estate. If you're looking to buy or sell, I'd love to talk to you. Or if you just want to sit and talk real estate in a no-pressure situation, I'd love to help you. I work with RE/MAX Partners in Starkville, Columbus, and West Point, Mississippi. I can help you find an agent anywhere in Mississippi or anywhere in the country. Just reach out to our office at 662-327-7705 or find me anywhere when you type in 662-329-SOLD.